Hey guys, you are watching your anime world. How are you all? Please support to subscribe this channel for watching new interesting stories. So in this video, we will see what if Deku joined the alliance of villains. Here is short summary. Left with no other option, Izuku turns to the side of evil to continue to change the world for the better. But how will the world change as the most heroic hero becomes a villain? Villain Deku. But before we start, if you want more stuff like this, then be sure to subscribe and like this video. And if possible, share this video with your friends. Now let's start the story. It felt like it was only yesterday that Izuku Midoriya's life fell apart. Which, to be fair, it was yesterday. Everything went so wrong and only got worse that day, a train wreck of events. Even though he met his favorite hero, the man he looked up to his entire life, in a chance encounter after school, he only gave the young boy a taste of reality. He couldn't be a hero. The young Midoriya walked to his seat as per usual, trying his best not to call attention to himself. Even though he got to class a little early this time around, there were still a few students inside. Great, Kachin isn't here yet. After what happened yesterday, I'm sure he'd let loose on me if he saw me again. It also happened that Katsuki was attacked yesterday by a sludge monster, the same one that All Might fought just before Izuku met him. How or why it got out was still a mystery to him. It was probably me, he thought, slumping in his chair. If I hadn't chased after him, he would have captured him properly. I'm always getting in the way. With the realization came a new wave of tears that threatened to make their way out. An old wound tore open yet again. Izuku laid his head down on his desk as he tried to prevent himself from crying again, almost the fourth time since yesterday. Hey Bakugo, you sure you're doing alright after what happened yesterday? Can it? I'm doing fine, don't be so dramatic, the voice of Bakugo retorted bitterly. As the loud and obnoxious boy made his way to 10 classroom with two of his friends, they were met with several concerned faces and curious looks. It wasn't every day that one of their own classmates is saved by the number one hero. Overnight, Bakugo became the talk of the class, easily brushing aside Midoriya's strange dream to go to Ua. What? Got something to say? The violent boy exclaimed, making everyone avert their eyes. Even when they were supposed to feel bad, they still couldn't help but think he deserved the encounter. All except Izuku, who was laying his head down to feign sleep. He wanted to be ignored, but Katsuki had other ideas. Hey nerd, you still planning on going to UA? Better answer honestly so I can kick your ass. Bakugo threatened out of frustration and annoyance. I don't know, Izuku said, fighting back tears. It was just as he thought. You don't know. I thought I told you that you'd never be a hero. It should be, no, he said before he slammed his hands onto his friend's desk. Look at me when I'm talking, Deku. Slowly, Izuku picked up his head to reveal his puffy red face with tears at the edges of his eyes, scared to look at Katsuki. The blonde middle schooler knew that Izuku was emotional for a boy, but to think he was this unstable. You're crying. I haven't even hit you yet. He growled. You really wanted to be a hero that badly. I'm sorry, I just. Save it. I don't wanna hear you say it. He said, standing above the boy. Rather than look at him with disgust or hatred, he instead looked more disappointed than anything. You need to stop acting like a kid. Just cause you want to get into UA doesn't mean it's going to happen, not for a quirkless reject like you. That's enough, Bakugo, less you want me to write you up. The middle-aged teacher sighed, getting up from his seat to start class. While Izuku was being berated, the rest of the class arrived, waiting for the lesson. HMPH, just had to set the record straight. He hissed, walking back to his seat. Deku never really was a bright one, especially as a kid. Even after he was diagnosed, he still dreamt of being a hero, of saving lives like All Might. Bullshit, Bakugo sneered to himself as the teacher began to drone on about science and whatnot. He's stupid if he even considers applying to UA, he'll make a fool of himself and me. Cause I'm gonna be the number one hero someday, and I don't want to be swept up with the likes of him. Izuku was too stunned to move. He stared blankly at the chalkboard with tears flowing down his face, both unable and unwilling to stop them. His fragile world had finally fallen apart, and the last bit of naive hope for his future was snuffed out in front of him. I could never be a hero. As the quirkless kid quietly sobbed to himself, the rest of the class ignored him, out of pity or out of spite. Some thought he was being pathetic and others thought he was tragic, but neither of the two people decided to help him. "Hey," a boy whispered to Bakugo. "Wasn't that a little harsh? Even by your standards." "Shut it extra," he clapped back, but trying to lower his voice. "He's not some kid anymore, and it's about time he learned his damn lesson." Elsewhere, in a run-down apartment, a frail man made his way inside to rest. The apartment itself wasn't too bad, but its poor state was primarily due to the owner having no time throughout the day to clean and maintain it, leaving it dirty and a complete mess. Clothes were left sprawled on the floor, a small mountain of dishes sat in the sink, a dust bunny floated across the floor with nothing to get rid of it. This is where the number one hero lived, hidden from the rest of the world. The place represented both his private life as well as his inability to take care of himself due to the pressure of the crowd. So goes the burden of the symbol of hope. Even though he was more than capable of flaunting his status and wealth, he willingly chose to live in a humble apartment in the center of the city, pulling himself down for the sake of the people. Oomph, I needed that, he deeply sighed as he laid on his dusty couch, taking a good sniff before he stood back up and plugged his nose. The thing smells like crap. Grunting in minor pain, the hero got up from his seat and stood to take a good look at the state of his apartment. This was by no means the way that the number one hero should be living in. But at the same time, this would be typical for a person like Toshinori Yagi, a fragile man with a disability. He not only spent too much time outside rather than inside, he also couldn't fit the mountain of chores into his daily schedule. I can't keep this up, not for long. Inwardly, Toshinori sighed deeply as he took in the full meaning of his own words. Ever since his injury he's become less and less capable of transforming into his powered-up state, and with every day it's become harder for him to keep up his appearance as All Might in front of the crowd. Sadly, it was time that he find someone to pass the torch to, like his mentor before him. The problem was, it was damn near impossible to find anyone who was truly worthy of One for All, especially since he was practically the biggest celebrity out there. He was greater than a household name by now, and anyone would want to take his powers without a second thought. Like that kid from yesterday. As far as fans go, that boy was the boldest and bravest one he's seen in years. By what he understood, he looked up to him his entire life dreaming of being a hero. It's a shame that his hero, of all people, had to be the one to tell him he couldn't become one at all, especially since he was quirkless. But it had to be done. He rationalized, still feeling the burning shame in himself for having to crush someone's dream. I can't in good faith send that kid into something he's not at all prepared for. He's better off as a civilian, out of harm's way. Even then, Toshinori couldn't forgive himself for what he did. It crushed him to know that he let down someone who admired him so much, and for his greatest fan to be told by their hero to stop following their dream. It takes a certain type of strength to look past it all. To distract himself he made his way to his room in order to prepare himself for his new job. A while ago he finally agreed to become a teacher at UA High School in order to teach the new generation. But also, he hoped that he could find the next bearer of One for All too. But with his form becoming harder to sustain every day, he'd be lucky if he could finish the year without giving in. The hero reached into his large closet and pulled out a bright yellow suit with stripes on it. It was made from a solid silk material, and the greatest benefit was its ability to extend enough for him to transform safely without tearing the suit. Just to test it out, Toshinori changed into the fine, freshly pressed suit. It was a massive step up from his usual baggy clothes that he always wore to prevent his transformation from tearing apart anything, but it still fit him a little big in most places. Stepping in front of a mirror, Toshinori watched as his body grew nearly twice its size and thrice its width, powering to become the mighty All Might. His blonde hair rose energetically, his two ears standing proud without any drooping. His chest, arms and legs grew in size and gained much definition, contrast to the twigs that they were before. And lastly, his great smile returned to him, almost sparkling in his reflection. All Might, stood in front of Toshinori boasting a confidence that he didn't truly possess, a strength that was only temporary. It felt natural for him to smile so wide when he was in his form, who wouldn't when they had the body of a Greek god. I am here, he boasted proudly with a deep, booming voice. Everything from the suit to his body shone in the light like it hadn't before. He looked so professional, so powerful in the mirror that he couldn't help but smile a little more than normal. But then, in the blink of an eye, it all vanished. In a puff of steam and smoke his muscles shrank, his hair fell and his smile was wiped away. He spat blood from his mouth and accidentally spilled some on his new suit. Crap, he exclaimed, grabbing a small towel immediately and dabbing the stain. Eventually, Toshinori was able to look into the mirror again and see who he truly was without the All Might persona, a fraile, weak man. His suit no longer glimmered with the same brilliance as before, his body seemed to barely fill in the gaps of his large suit. His face was now ragged with a bit of blood and large eye bags. He was a complete contrast to how he looked a second ago, how the symbol of hope was supposed to look. I have to find a new symbol of hope, someone that knows and understands what it takes to be a hero that everyone relies on. He explained. But all would come in due time. For now, he had to wait for the selection of the newest UA students, and that wasn't until a while from now. For now, I gotta clean those dishes, he grumbled, removing his suit and placing it back into the closet. All would come in due time. But for now, the fate of the world of heroes as well as the lineage of One for All rested in his meek hands. That same day Izuku walked his way home with a reddened face. His constant crying prevented him from listening to the lecture properly, and even Bakugo and his friends didn't bother him after class, leaving him alone to cry for another while. It was hard for him not to cry. After all, it felt like his soul was torn to shreds, his entire purpose for living had disappeared entirely, and his life no longer had meaning. No matter how impossible it sounded, nor how childish it was, Izuku always dreamt of becoming a pro-hero like All Might. Sure, he wouldn't be like him exactly, but surely there was a way for a quirkless kid to become a hero. Maybe through gadgets, martial arts, it didn't matter, so long as he could help others. But now that was gone, his impossible, daring dream was gone. No ceremony, no music, no warning. Izuku just stopped believing, as simple as that. He gave in to the constant criticism from Bakugo and others and finally accepted it. He wasn't going to be a hero. Just thinking about it made a fresh wave of tears form on his face. He was so sick of crying by now, but whenever he thought back to his dream being a mere myth, his heart filled with an indescribable pain like nothing before. It was like his life no longer had any meaning, no purpose behind actions, everything was for nothing. Eventually Midoriya made it back home in one piece, or at least relatively so. As he set his backpack to the ground to grab his house keys, he realized something. Crap, my backpack's open, he thought, looking inside of it and discovering that he was now missing one of his research journals. Dang, I can't believe I lost it. Hopefully I can find it again soon, or make another one. He concluded half-heartedly, not motivated to do either of those things. As he finally opened the door, he was kindly greeted by his mom, who wore an apron over her usual clothes. Much like him, she had green hair and soft green eyes, appearing like an older, more feminine and maternal version of Izuku, or technically he was a carbon copy of her. Even though she got fatter in recent years, she's still the exact same person she was since Izuku was born. Her face brightened with joy at seeing her son return home. Honey, you're back. I made food already, so come and eat, she exclaimed, only for her smile to fade away. Ever inquisitive, she noticed that Izuku lacked the same smile that he wore every day. What's wrong? Are you sick? Your face is all red. Worriedly, Inko led her son to the couch and sat him beside her, trying to get an answer for whatever was going on. Recently he's been coming home with minor bruises and some cuts, but just yesterday he said that his favorite notebook was destroyed in his hands. She didn't know what was going on with Izuku, and he always refrained from telling her out of shyness, but as his mother it's been long enough that she's stayed silent. Please tell me, honey, are the kids at school bullying you? No, it's not that. Izuku lied, trying to defuse the situation at least a little bit, even though bullying was part of the problem. It's something else, something that's been bothering me. What is it? You know you can tell me anything. Izuku sighed deeply as his anxiety rose. It was hard to speak out his problems to anyone, let alone his own mother. But this new pain that he felt, the emptiness in his stomach that felt like a void inside of him, he had to tell her about it. Quote, Do you remember yesterday when I was saved from the sludge villain? Yes, you came home with so many bruises I got worried. She responded. Are you still hurt? Is that what this is? No, Mom. He waved her off. That's not all this is about. I never really told you who saved me, did I? He asked, but Inko only shook her head. It was All Might himself that saved me. What? She exclaimed, in surprise and joy for her son. All Might saved him. Is that true? How come you never told me about this? It's because of what happened after that I felt bad, he stated, making Inko's joy die down. What could have happened that would have made him so upset? After meeting his greatest hero. When I met him, I was so stunned with joy that I lost my mind, and after he tried to jump away I clung to him and followed him. I wanted to ask him an important question, one that I've thought about all of my life. I figured, as the #1 hero he'd have the clearest answer. And what was it? Quote, Whether I could be a hero, even without a quirk. She held her breath when she heard the statement, well aware of her son's obsession with being a hero. Ever since he watched that video of All Might as a kid, he's wanted more than anything to be a hero that inspired people like he did. His room was always stuffed with All Might figurines and posters, and countless merchandise of his favorite hero, all to reflect his dream of being one someday. But ever since he was diagnosed as quirkless, Izuku's life got harder. He started getting bullied in school by the quirked kids, and he even stopped being friends with Katsuki after a while. Even though Izuku never said it out loud, he's always struggled with bullying and being made fun of at school, and even though she's gone to the school numerous times for the teachers to do something, it never stopped. And after everything, it was all because Izuku had a dream. A dream to help others, to save people. Quote, And what did he say? The thin, lanky frame of All Might stood before the doorway leading down the building. His thin body only barely took up the space of his oversized shirt and large cargo pants. He was a hollow imitation of All Might, but nonetheless real. The man behind the smile. It's not bad to dream. But sometimes, you just have to be more realistic. He said. That my dreams should be realistic. Inko gasped in shock. All Might told him that. It must have been devastating for him to hear that from his idol of all people. Mom, will I ever be a hero? Oh sweetie. The mother and son embraced each other emotionally as Izuku cried in her arms. She understood how fragile he was at the moment, how he was only now transitioning from the boy he's always been. But at the end of the day, it was all a part of growing up. Izuku wasn't a kid anymore to be imagining himself play hero. Heck, most people who imagine themselves to be heroes just don't last, quirk or not. So in the nicest way possible, Inko had to be the final blow to his lifelong dream. Izuku, I know this must be hard for you, but as your mother I can't let you go out there on your own and get hurt like that. She stated kindly, taking into account her son's broken heart. I don't think you'll be a hero like All Might, but you'll be a hero in your own way. What? Powers or not, you're my Izuku, and I'm confident that a boy like you can change a life, not like a hero, but as yourself. So please, don't stop helping other people, be your own hero. The words were a little hard to process for the young boy, and quite frankly he just couldn't understand them. Be a hero, without being a hero. That was impossible. How could he save people like a hero if he wasn't going to be one? In a world full of superheroes, anyone that ever wanted to be a hero was always out saving people daily, like the pros who always used their quirks to save people from villains and disasters. How could he save people if he wasn't strong enough to do so? Thanks Mom, that helps a lot. Izuku lied. As much as his mom did her best to help, he just couldn't see what she meant at all, and quite frankly he started to believe that she was wrong. It's going to be okay, Izu. Let's have some dinner to help you relax. She smiled encouragingly. Yeah, thanks Mom. Was the fridge always this small? Currently, As the sun began to set and the night crept in, the number one hero was busy reorganizing his house. On his day off no less. He was able to do so much with the time he set for himself: sweep the house, dust it, organize it, clean dishes, etc., etc. By the time he finished it was almost sparkling clean, though his fridge was actually filled to the brim with spoiled takeout that went bad a while ago, plus the groceries that he accidentally left yesterday were still missing. There's nothing much again. Sai serves me right for leaving the groceries in the middle of the street again. Toshinori huffed as he walked over and slumped in his couch, tired from the busy day. If it weren't for his busy lifestyle he'd be able to properly budget his leftover harrowing funds on genuine meals, but not only does he still need to practice his cooking a bit, but he usually can't go a minute without being called to the streets. It wasn't all bad, but his house certainly didn't look the part of the number one hero. Part of the job, I guess. I'm so busy saving people I don't have time to myself, he thought. His mind flashed back to the green-haired boy he let down yesterday. He spent all of yesterday and today mulling his decision and choice of words, wondering how he was supposed to answer such a question. Can I be a hero like you? Without a quirk. But when he looked at his surroundings, a clean apartment with an empty fridge, as well as what it cost him to get there, it just didn't add up. Being a hero was more than just running away from a burning building carrying 50 people at once. It was about skill, hard work and dedication. When most people think of hero, they don't expect to see a Friday man struggle to get up in the morning because his lungs were acting up again, but the amount of dedication he had was what pushed him out of his house and into the street every day. It was what made him the number one hero, and the symbol of peace. He was able to push everything aside, the pain, the struggle, the sacrifice, to save people every day. And that wasn't something that he could inherently expect from another hopeful boy. I don't know what he's really like, but I don't want him to turn into this. I don't want anyone to turn out like this. He still debated with himself if what he said was right or wrong. Did he need to say more to explain himself? It still wasn't something that sat right with Toshinori, but for the moment, he believed he made the right choice. Eventually Toshinori finally picked up the remote control beside him and turned on the TV. The most immediate program was the news. That's right folks, there's currently a massive police chase going on with a villain quirk user in the district of Musudafu. The news reporter blared as the camera framed a high-speed chase going on. That's not far from here. It'll only take me a minute or two if I push myself, Toshinori thought as he instinctively rose from his couch and walked out the door. All in the day of the symbol of peace, can't catch a break. Night had fallen over Izuku's home, but he remained restless. The thoughts that came to him were too confusing and too painful for him to sit still. So, while his mom was dead asleep he snuck out, careful not to wake her. Unlike other kids his age he was heavily rule-abiding, but at the current moment he desperately needed to get some fresh air. Wearing a dark green hoodie of his, black shorts and his favorite red shoes, Izuku bumped and tripped his way out of his apartment, making sure not to stray too far or get lost. Then again, it wasn't like leaving his home was a novel experience. While the middle schooler walked around he took note of his surroundings, the lack of light that would otherwise brighten his environment, the missing abundance of people that would normally be up and about in the street. All of which were gone. But the most important part, and the scariest, were the lack of heroes too. Harrowing in the night wasn't exactly rare, but the less people around normally meant there were less people that needed saving, so in turn there were less heroes. Still, crime wasn't particularly high anyway, but the fact that there wasn't someone around the corner who could protect him was worrying in a way. Regardless, Midoriya pressed on, bothered more by his own emotions than by his surroundings. While he was young, he didn't look too different from the other few strangers that would wander around the city as well. He blended right in for once. To distract himself he went to the heart of the city to see the artificial lighting of the city district. Such large spanning roads, tall standing buildings, all lacking the overpopulated crowd under the LED lamps that were scattered everywhere. Aside from the emptiness there was also the faint ringagung of several police sirens in the distance, most likely a police chase. But none of the people around paid any attention to it, so neither did Izuku. The heroes can handle it. It sure is ominous, Kinda scary actually. He said out loud, hearing the light echo of his voice through the empty city block. You learn to get used to it, one way or another. The startled boy jumped as he turned to see the person behind him, not expecting anyone to be so close without him realizing. Before him stood a tall man with a shadowy head and yellow eyes. The cloud-like man was held together by his clothes and the large metal device on his neck. Otherwise, the man wore a bartender ESC outfit, the white dress shirt, black pants, black vest, red tie, all appeared to be what a normal bartender would wear. Who are you? Forgive me for startling you, I'm Kurogiri. I didn't see you there at first, the mistake is mine. The dark mist man apologized profusely as he bowed his head. Oh, no, it's okay, I wasn't paying attention either. Izuku calmed down. I'm Izuku Midoriya, sorry for that. The man was taken aback a little by the mention of the boy's name, but pressed on. Well, Midoriya, you look too young to be out so late. Is there any reason for that? It's nothing really, I just wanted to clear my head. Under the cover of night? The man questioned, sounding reasonably suspicious. Or, I guess you could say it's a personal problem. I'm still not too sure what to think of it. If it's so detrimental, then why not tell me? I'm a good listener. Izuku took a moment to consider whether he wanted to say something so personal to a stranger, but at the same time he was already in the middle of the near-empty city. Plus the man was so nice and understanding, what harm would there be in telling a kind stranger about his problem? Well, it's always been a dream of mine to become a hero, ever since I was a little kid. But now I can't become one like I wanted, I can't save people like everyone else does. And why not? The man prodded further, quote, because I'm quirkless. I don't have any special powers like the rest of the world does. He revealed, but the man didn't seem too surprised. I want to save people like the pro heroes do, but without powers I'm just useless. How can a kid like me save people? The man seemed to pause as he stared at the emotional young boy before him. But after what seemed like a deal of consideration, the man had something to say. Your ordeal is a detrimental one. You have the soul of a hero, but lack the strength to see it through. You really think so? I do. Kurogiri replied before he looked around the empty street around them. And if you want the answer to your problem, I have just the solution. The clothed mist man disappeared into a dark alley, away from the open city street. Izuku was both confused and a little scared for what it entailed, but then he thought about what he could gain. The answer to my problem. About being a hero, he thought worryingly as he found himself walking behind Kurogiri. His mind was softly telling him to run the opposite direction, but his heart was telling him to see what his answer really was. Could I really become a hero? In here, young Midoriya, the man said as he pointed towards a large patch of his own mist that created what looked like a portal. Through this portal there is a man who's waiting to see you. Take it and you'll find the strength to become something more, to achieve your dream. Leave it, and you'll abandon that dream you hold so dear forever. Midoriya was faced with what was possibly the scariest decision of his life. Logically speaking, his mind was now screaming at him to run away, to not fall for such an obvious trap. He knew that this was a blind kidnapping, and if he were to take the portal he couldn't imagine himself leaving in one piece. What if there was actually a villain on the other side? Waiting to see me, he thought as he stared at the empty patch of purple void, calling his name to go through. His heart was in a different place than his mind, it always was really. The chance to become something more. Could this stranger really claim something so massive from a kid like him? A quirkless. He knew that he was useless, he always knew, but that portal, maybe it had something in store for him. Yet the more he thought about it, the more his heart took over for him. He didn't want to abandon his dream, he wanted to cling to it desperately for as long as he could. If this was the answer to his problem, what would keep him motivated for the rest of his life, his purpose, then he was willing to risk it. Here goes nothing, he decided as he inched towards the mysterious portal. When he stepped through he disappeared from sight, and soon after Kurogiri did as well. As the two disappeared, a large, buff man wearing black cargo shorts and a white t-shirt landed on top of the roof beside the alleyway. The man jumped down onto the alleyway with a hard crash, and as the man made his way out, his body began to deflate as his muscles and height both shrank in size, letting out a puff of smoke as he did so. This was followed by a fierce coughing fit. "That cough takes care of it cough," the man stated out loud. Luckily he landed in a very quiet part of the district, otherwise there'd normally be suspicious glances coming from all over. "I need to get a cab before it gets too late," he thought as he reached into his pocket to find nothing. No wallet, no phone, no keys. Not again. In a dark, obscured room with no light at all, Izuku appeared through a portal that was nearly just as dark. When the boy entered, he was surprised to be surrounded in darkness, unable to see anything at all, not even his arms. This was a mistake, he regretted almost immediately as dread took over. It was like a nightmare was nearby, hidden inside the darkness. Although Izuku couldn't tell where he was, he just knew that there was someone dangerous near him. Maybe even in the same room. "Hello, anyone there?" he shouted, hearing his voice echo against the walls. "You must be Izuku Midoriya," a voice said from behind him, one that was silky and elegant, but commanded respect and oozed power. Out of fear alone, Izuku whipped around and bowed to honor the man in hopes that he doesn't hurt him. Yes. That's my name," he stumbled through his words, picking and choosing them with express care. "There's no need to fear me, young boy, I was just looking for you." "Why, you were?" "Yes, I was. You see, I've had my eye on you ever since I found this lovely journal of yours," he stated. "It's a wonderful piece of work, and when I found that the author of such a journal was only a middle schooler, I just had to send someone to search for you." My missing quirk journal, he realized, making him a little sick to his stomach. He found my journal and wanted to see me. The atmosphere was more than a little tense, shrouded in darkness with only a menacing voice to listen to. It was as though he was thrusted straight into a nightmare with his eyes closed. "Oh, silly me, I forget that others can't see in the dark," the man said as suddenly the dim lights came on to provide some illumination. Though it wasn't much better than before, Izuku could now see a little bit of the man that was talking. From what he could gather, the man had a bald, wrinkly head with no eyes at all. He wore what seemed to be a black suit that disappeared under the darkness, and right beside him was medical equipment, mainly an oxygen mask. The sight of the man was much less frightening than what the boy could imagine, but no less scary and far more ominous than before. The man's non-eyes peered deep into his soul, a tiny smile indicating that he meant no harm. For now. "My apologies, I lost my eyes a long time ago and hence learned to see in the dark," he explained before he got back to business. "By what Kurogiri has told me, you seek to become a hero. Even though you're quirkless." "That's right. Sir. I see, you remind me of someone I once knew. A noble soul, it's a shame that he was so misguided. Just like you, misguided by the society we live in." What do you mean?" Midoriya asked, mustering the courage to speak out. "You say you wish to save people like the bright and shiny heroes, but with your disability of sorts, you've been casted aside from the society you live in. You want to save people, but the cruel hearts of man only judge you for your dreams." Izuku was more frightened than ever now. How was this man able to collect so much information on him? How did he know more than what he told Kurogiri? Was he spying on him? Yet you fail to see your own worth as well. These notes of yours. You possess a special talent that no one else has, at such a young age even. It'd be a great shame to let it go to waste under a society in which no one appreciates you for what you are. Thank you, Izuku responded, unsure as to where this is going. "But you've come to me for strength, haven't you? You wanted to become more than what you were, what others saw in you. You have a dream worth clinging to, and while others spit in your face you continue to dream." "Yes, I see, just as I remember him," the man commented with a smile. "Well then, you've made the right decision. Because now, you shall be my pupil, and your skills shall serve me well." Izuku felt overjoyed for a second before his logical mind finally took a stand against him. How could he accept such a deal? The lights, the stalking, the ominous tone of voice, the fear he felt even now. He was speaking to the most villainous man he could think of. "Wait," Izuku mustered every ounce of courage within him. But you're a villain, aren't you? Does that lower your opinion of me? I can't see how I can be a hero if you're a villain. I don't want to be evil like you, Izuku declared with all his remaining strength, followed by the immense horror that came with his decision. He just spoke out. Was this guy about to kill him? Did his smile fade? Instead, the man only chuckled a little in amusement and in such a way that confused Midoriya. He couldn't tell if what he said was funny, or if he just made the worst mistake of his life. I admire your courage, but you are misinformed, he declared, because not all villains are evil. They're not. No, not at all. Just misunderstood. Villains are called so because they've been thrown away by society. Just like you, he declared. Being a villain doesn't make you evil, it's just a narrative that was made by heroes to justify the cruelty that we endure for being villains. So then, how am I supposed to save people if I'm a villain? That's an easy question. You can save people by being yourself, by helping other villains endure the struggle that goes with being outcasts. You can save people from the society that we live in. Izuku couldn't understand what the man was saying. It sounded so complex and unreasonable that it frankly confused him. Villains weren't evil, so then why were heroes always fighting them? Why was the world so bent on destroying villainy if not because it was sheer evil? So, Izuku Midoriya, will you become my pupil? The question hung in the air coldly as Izuku stared at the floor in contemplation. This all sounded so wrong that it made him shake a little. How could he become a villain? He wanted to be a hero. He didn't want to fight heroes, he wanted to become one. To save people like All Might, not go against him. Yet he could at least marginally understand what was being said. He was an outcast, always has been. He didn't know what this man wanted from him aside from using his skills in observation and analysis, but he understood what he was helping him do, helping him achieve. The morning after the meeting between Izuku Midoriya and All for One was both the most confusing and the most worrying day in Izuku's life. When he returned home he slept so late that he awoke at nearly 12 the next day, well rested as well as anxious for what's to come. After he came to, the boy took a moment to himself, staring at his ceiling in silence and contemplation. The fear from the day prior was now gone, and in its place was a mountain of worry and wonder for his future. A while ago he thought he was going to die, and here he was, having gotten a full night's rest. In all honesty he didn't know what to expect, he only knew that something had to happen by now. But as he laid in silence, absorbing the still calmness in his room, it felt as though all of yesterday was just a dream. That was until he heard a light ping emanating from a phone beside him. Izuku sat up and saw the black flip phone that he was given the night before, a burner phone that was hard to track and easy to conceal. On it were two contacts, Sensei and Kurogiri, and while Izuku didn't know if he was really allowed to just call his new master or his new caretaker at any moment, he sure wasn't going to test his luck now. He unlocked the phone and opened it to read the message he received from Kurogiri. Master would like for you to document a few quirks onto a new journal for him. It read. He couldn't text me himself. He thought before realizing that his new sensei couldn't see, so maybe it was hard for him to even pick up calls. That, or he just couldn't be bothered, which was also a likely answer. But he has a contact. Refocusing, Izuku tried to type out a response before realizing that the phone had a different format for typing letters than normal smartphones did. It took a little fiddling before he was able to craft an "okay" as a response. I'll have to work on that. Finally sliding out of his bed, Midoriya took a good look at his room filled to the brim with All Might merchandise and memorabilia. It was ironic now, just yesterday he became the one thing that his favorite hero hated the most. A villain. His obsession with All Might was only now coming into question, not because of any shifted ideals or new realizations. But because it was awkward now to see his room covered in hero merchandise while he was, in reality, a bona fide villain. It wasn't much of a realization, but the idea made him a little uncomfortable in a sense. I shouldn't get ahead of myself, he thought. I haven't even broken a law yet, I'm still no villain yet. It was that small thought that scared him a little. Yet was a very strong word, for Izuku didn't even know what a villain really did outside of commit crimes and be put into prison by the heroes. But he was a villain, so did he deserve to go to jail? This is all so confusing. It was still a brand new concept to him that not all villains were evil, let alone the fact he was a villain now too, or at least partly so. He wasn't sure what Sensei meant when he said all the things about villains being victims and not evil. All his life he was taught that criminals needed to be put in jail by the heroes and the police, so how could he claim that they were good at all? I'm sure I'll learn soon enough. For now, I need to follow his lead. Eventually, after much reminiscing, Izuku finally left his room and walked into the kitchen to see her mother hang up her apron. The living room smelled like breakfast that he missed out on, but there was still enough on the pan for more. "Oh, good morning, honey. Are you feeling well now?" she greeted with the warmest smile ever. "I'm doing well now, thanks Mom," Izuku replied with as much positivity as he could muster, but the reality was that his problem still wasn't completely solved. He was no hero at all, quite the opposite actually. He knew that he had to find a way somehow, but for the moment he was still just Izuku Midoriya, the average, uninteresting quirkless boy. "I'm so glad to hear that. Breakfast is still a little hot if you want some, and I'll take care of the cleaning," she stated as she went to grab a plate for her son. "I hope that this wasn't a mistake. Maybe Sensei really can help me save people," Midoriya thought as he sat down at the dinner table and waited for his late breakfast. He didn't know what the future held for him, but what he did know was that he had to take things one step at a time, beginning with going outside. Elsewhere, inside the apartment of Toshinori Yagi, the true persona of All Might was fast asleep. He came home very late again since he left in such a rush, having to wait hours for a train to pick him up. By the time he got back home it was already 4 in the morning, again. But as the symbol of peace rested soundly, his phone began to ring persistently, a call desperately trying to go through but failing to wake the hero. It took a full minute of ringing before Toshinori was able to rouse himself awake and pick up the phone. The bags in his eyes were much deeper than usual now. Hello Toshinori, did you sleep well last night?" The voice of Principal Nezu, Toshinori's friend and employer, spoke. "Something tells me that you know something." Toshinori groaned a little, wiping sleep from his eyes. "You're correct," Nezu chuckled. "It's the darnest thing really. Before going to sleep I saw All Might stop a crime in Musudafu without stopping for a second to talk to the camera. It's a wonder what he was doing on the other side of Tokyo." "You caught me," he moaned as he crept out of bed, feeling every bone in his body pop loudly as he did so. "I pushed myself and stopped a crime a few miles away." "A few is not the right way to put it, Yagi," Nezu sighed. "Even with your condition you're spread far too thin for any hero, much less a normal person." "I'm sorry, but I needed to do something about the police chase because I was capable of stopping it." "Just because you can doesn't mean you always should," Nezu lectured. "For a man with such declining health you shouldn't push yourself as though you were in your prime. Sooner or later all of your efforts will come back to bite you. Which is all the more reason why I need to find a new heir to One for All, so that there'll be a new symbol of peace," Toshinori reaffirmed, and as he did so he made his way to the kitchen for some coffee. "That's fair," Nezu sighed, all too familiar with his friend's form of thinking. "Speaking of which, have you received my email?" "I haven't checked my computer lately." "As I thought," he noted. "I sent you an email with the full roster of students currently attending UA. I also went through the trouble of giving you a detailed profile of each student and how they'd fare with One for All." "Wow, you really went through a lot for me." "Of course, I take my own job just as seriously as you do yours," the mouse hybrid boasted rather proudly. As they spoke, All Might was able to serve himself a cup of coffee, though cold since he woke up so late. "I'll make sure to look at the list when I get the time." "I thought you'd say that," Nezu said before he abruptly hung up on Toshinori rather surprisingly. "What?" Moments later there was a knock on the door, which also surprised him. Did he half thought as he walked to the entrance and opened it, revealing Principal Nezu at his front door. The small, humanoid mouse with the intellect of a genius human wore a small black trench coat over his usual two-piece suit. He also had thick, beige shoes and small black pants to go along with the outfit. His cute, unassuming smile contrasted the large gash for a scar that he bore over his right eye, a mark of his dark past. Which is why I departed my whole schedule to prevent you from leaving. You can't be serious. I'm afraid so. If you're not willing to take care of yourself properly, then I must be the one to step in. Starting with your breakfast. It's harmful to drink coffee without a proper meal, you know. The mouse hybrid scolded as though he were his mother, and might as well be by now. Reluctantly, Toshinori allowed Nezu to enter as he inspected the clean apartment. Of the few times that he'd come to visit, clean wasn't really the right word to describe it. You were able to clean. I'm very proud of you for that. Thanks, he said awkwardly, although he questioned whether or not cleaning was such an achievement, but inwardly he knew that it was for a man as busy as himself. So, the fridge is a little empty. I'm not too sure what we can make here. Toshinori sighed reluctantly. Nezu was often just as stubborn as he was. That's fine, because instead I'm taking you out to breakfast first, my treat. Are you sure that you're not too busy to be doing stuff like this? As I've already said, I've cleared out my entire schedule for the day with the express purpose of helping you find a new heir. But we can't start with empty stomachs now, can we? I guess not. Toshinori sighed in defeat. Very well then, I'll be waiting in the living room while you get changed. And no hidden hero outfits this time. You've played that trick one too many times while we're out. Nezu scolded as he struggled his way onto the couch, sitting down and turning on the TV with the sole purpose of changing the channel from the news station. He really doesn't mess around when it comes to this stuff. He treats me just like a kid, Toshinori said to himself as he poured out his frigid black coffee and left to change. Back at the city of Musudafu, Izuku wandered the busy streets of the district with an observant eye. His mom was fairly surprised when she heard that Izuku wanted to explore the city by himself. It certainly wasn't out of character for him to just up and walk around the city aimlessly. He was a curious kid after all, but he certainly wasn't one who left the house often, usually too busy with studies or watching videos on old and new pro heroes. But when he explained that he just wanted some time to think, she stopped worrying as much as before. It was natural for a boy like him to do something so out of the ordinary at a time like this, when his mind was growing and his dreams were changing. In reality, he left because he wanted to do more research on quirks that he'd find in the city, from heroes or just ordinary citizens. Although the boy was out on assignment, it truly felt like a day off for him. The city looks so much better in the daytime, he commented as he walked through the streets as a normal pedestrian, just like any other. While Midoriya had to go out and observe like he would occasionally, he couldn't help but note the stark contrast between the city in daytime versus in nighttime. While both were pretty in some aspects, the daytime just brought out so many aspects of the world compared to nighttime. Whereas the city would look near abandoned in the nighttime, unpopulated and inactive, in the daytime it was absolutely full of activity. The crowds that walked from place to place, the occasional pro hero that would swoop by and make their presence known, the bright shining sun that highlighted everything. It was what Izuku liked most about the city, so full of hope and prospect. I like the city better when the sun's up, he thought as he followed the crowd wherever it went, no true destination in mind. As the green-haired boy scouted out people with interesting quirks that he could observe, he found himself with more time on his hands to think to himself, fully taking in the events that have transpired. From the fated meeting with All Might, to him becoming a pupil to All for One, everything was just so sudden that he didn't know whether to call himself lucky or the exact opposite. I still don't know anything about the world, do I? Izuku thought to himself, walking along the street. How can I become a villain if it goes against all there is to becoming a hero? Unless All for One unless Sensei is wrong, it's impossible to become a hero by being a villain. Maybe I'm just not cut out for it. After all was said and done, the naive boy still couldn't understand just what All for One or his mother meant, because he has grown his entire life under the society in which heroes are the best of the best. Heroes were always known for their courage, strength, grit and goodwill, that any sane person would logically want to be a hero, or at least as far as Izuku was concerned. The only way to ever do good was to become one of the people who did just that, and to go against that would be not only to betray his own ideals, but everything he's come to know about how the world works. As much as Izuku wanted to believe that his master would seek out his best interests, he just couldn't imagine it. As he walked, there was a small commotion that pulled him from his thoughts, a light scrap between a hero and a villain that, instead of pushing away the crowd, attracted the civilians around for them all to watch the event. A hero fight. Maybe I can write down their quirk, he thought as he ran towards the source of trouble to find a large crowd surrounding the battle. In the middle of the street there stood two men, the first of which was the criminal with a small safe in his hands that he snatched from inside a jewelry store. His quirk made his skin gray and gave him a few sharp teeth and pointy bits around his body like a shark, but otherwise he wore dark green cargo pants, a white tank top and plain white shoes to look inconspicuous. In front of him was one of the most popular heroes of the time, the number 2 hero Endeavor. His flame quirk was almost always active, giving him the appearance of having fiery, flaming hair and a mustache. But from what wasn't covered in constant flame, he wore a dark blue suit with patches of flame as well as a belt with a golden emblem on it. Much like All Might, he was tall, muscular and tough, but unlike him he was brash, loud and very obnoxious at times. Though his methods were extreme, he was number 2 for a reason. "Give it up, your days are numbered," the hero shouted confidently, ignoring the many cameras that were pointed at him. "You'll never take me alive." The criminal attempted to sprint in the opposite direction, hoping to lose the hero within the crowd that was made by his appearance. Unfortunately, the flaming hero was 2 steps ahead as he used his quirk to flame boost himself in front of the crook. In one swift motion the man brought his fist charged with a raging flame and unleashed it upon the shark-looking man, pushing him back as the flames temporarily engulfed him and slamming him against a concrete wall. As he fell to his knees with burns all throughout his body, the safe full of money was dropped along the way, falling to the sidelines for a normal civilian to grab and return it. "Wow, over in a flash. I guess being number 2 means this stuff happens all the time," Izuku commented as he began to jot down things in his notepad. Although he long since wrote an entry for Endeavor, this was specific for Sensei, so it wouldn't hurt to have another. "Huh, gross, am I right?" Izuku turned to see a strange man standing beside him, staring at the event ahead of them. His identity was obscured purposefully due to all of the layers he wore. He wore black boots with black pants and a large black jacket. The man also wore black sunglasses as well as a black cap with the hoodie drawn, but from what Izuku could see he had a burn scar on his chin. "Excuse me, oh, can't you see?" the man reiterated. "Look at the way he attacked the thug without restraint. I bet he never took into account whether or not he can take the heat." On second glance Izuku took a closer look at the criminal that was put down. The shark man writhed in pain as he was covered in burns all over his body, all of which seemed to be second-degree burns. By what Izuku could observe, his shark body was most likely resistant or immune to water, which couldn't have done well against any sort of flame. If anything, he might just be susceptible to catching fire with poor defenses against it. "I see. But the hero stopped him from stealing, isn't that what they're supposed to do?" "You could say that, but do you think they care if you get scars from their saving?" The man countered. "That bastard couldn't care less if he sends thugs to jail with a few scars, as long as he looks pretty in front of the camera. Being a villain doesn't make you evil, it's just a narrative that was made by heroes to justify the cruelty that we endure for being villains." "That sounds a lot like what Sensei told me," he realized as he saw the criminal being cuffed by the police, getting shoved around as he was escorted to the car. "But heroes are supposed to be the good guys. How come they can overlook something like this?" Midoriya realized, seeing the cruelty unfold in front of him. The criminal was already in lots of pain, but he witnessed as he was shoved into the car with the crowd booing him from the sidelines, throwing things at him for good measure too. "That's because there's more to it than what you see in the surface. Everything runs much deeper than what you see. How can you be so certain of that?" The strange man only frowned as he glanced at Midoriya, his eyes an expression hidden behind his shades. That was until he removed them and pulled down the collar of his jacket to reveal dark purple scars that he were normally hiding. Just under his depressing blue eyes there were 2 purple patches of dark, scarred skin that seemed to have been burned off, surrounded by stitches that transitioned to his normal, paler skin. From his mouth downwards there was also a large patch of charred skin that ran further down his shirt, and his loose sleeve revealed an additional scar below his wrist that also ran down his arm. Without the shades or jacket to cover his face, the strange man looked like a patchwork monster straight out of a fictional story. How did that happen? This was because of a hero, and his ambitions, the man stated disgustedly. Izuku was horrified to see the deep scars that the man bore, making him appear like a damaged human being. Whatever he was before, there was no trace of now, only the pain in his dark blue eyes that were likely linked to his condition. "Why are you telling me this?" he asked hesitantly, staring at the horrid scars. "'Cause you look like a smart kid, with that notebook and all. I took you for one that could hear me out," the man explained, pointing at Izuku's half-sketch of endeavor as he put on his shades again. "Just know that whenever you see these things happen, look a little closer." With that the man walked away, not saying another word as the stunned boy stared into the man's direction. As he did so, the crowd dispersed, and Midoriya immediately found himself in the middle of the active street, blocking traffic. "Oh," he yelped in response to a blaring horn, forcing him to move out of the way. "How could a hero do something like that?" was his primary line of thought as he passively followed a new crowd around the city, fully forgetting about the notes he was writing on the pro-hero. Somewhere inside Japan, in a quaint little tea shop, was the pro-hero All Might and the principal of Nezu, enjoying their breaks. Much to Toshinori's reluctance, he was taken out to eat and drink for the morning, still recovering from his lack of sleep. The shop itself wasn't anything too special, small in size and capacity with only a handful of high tables for customers. The design was more of a traditional tea shop, complete with bamboo and aged wood to give the place a more antique feel, and the owners of the shop were also fairly old. The place itself was a family business, but it sure made for a good store. "I'm surprised you like this place, it has an old aesthetic," Toshinori commented as he sipped his freshly made black coffee. In front of him were a few delicately made ham sandwiches, a stark contrast to his usual reheated Chinese takeout. "It's my favorite place. The atmosphere is so very comforting," Nezu replied happily as he too sipped from his dark-colored tea. Toshinori felt the effects of the tea shop too, its calming environment, warm people and good food. It was a wonder how he was able to overlook a place like this for so long, in the middle of the city no less. It was like a peaceful gateway, one that blocked out all of the stress that came from the streets. "You know, I've been meaning to tell you something," Nezu began. "It's very generous that you donate virtually all of your funds to charity and such, but it's important to leave things for yourself to enjoy." "What do you mean?" "What I mean is that as much as you do your best to do good, you should never forget about your own well-being. If the empty fridge of what I could only assume had copious amounts of food to go is of any indicator, he's got me there. Listen, I cannot begin to thank you for all of the effort and struggle you've done to keep this country, no, the world, a peaceful land. I as well as many others appreciate you for it. But, now that you're losing your strength, it's time to take your retirement more seriously." And just like that, Toshinori's ease and comfort went away in a flash. Through Nezu's short lecture, the problems of the real world came back to him, implementing the same stress as always. What was he doing here? He should be out making the most of what he has left, patrolling the streets, protecting the people, making the world better. You're right, I guess. He sighed with frustration, tapping his foot lightly. The sooner he could leave this place, the sooner he could find an heir to his position as symbol of peace, and with it the world could remain whole. "I don't mean to give you any more worries or concerns, but I'm only doing what's best for your sake. You can't keep burning the daylight candle at both ends and expect things to go well," Nezu stated, drinking more of his tea as he laid back in his chair, doing his best to provide All Might with an example of what he should look like. Instead, Toshinori sat hunched over his food, tapping his foot and staring out towards the sole window to monitor the outside. "I suppose it's pointless to keep repeating the same lesson. I try my best to stop him, but it's just in his very nature to sacrifice himself for others," Nezu observed as he looked at Toshinori with a sly smile. No matter what position he was in, his stubbornness to help others almost always overrode common sense. Whether he could or he couldn't didn't matter, It was always about pushing himself to do what's best for others that made All Might the #1 hero. As if on cue, there was a light shake of the ground, followed by a distant panic from the crowd outside. Whatever it was must be quite the commotion to stir such a reply. Instinctively Toshinori jumped from his seat and ran out to the door, only to stop himself just as he opened it to look at Nezu for approval. With only a defeated smile, the small animal hybrid shouted back, "I'll be waiting at your house once you're finished." With a quick nod, the blonde man bursted out of the door, allowing the loud and obnoxious chaos to enter for a brief moment before it shut once more, returning the calming atmosphere again. Comments and questions came from the other patrons of the tea shop, but none were of alarm or concern. "Is he all right? What was that outside? I'm sure we're fine. Of course we'll be okay," Nezu thought to himself, because All Might is here. Back in the city streets of Musudafu, Midoriya continued to walk and observe the quirks around him. In the few hours that he's been out, he already collected a handful of pages, all of which were fairly extensive notes but lacked the deep dives that he normally added, like weaknesses and theories on ways to improve the capabilities of said quirks. "I'm sure I can add more later. For now I need to get in as many as I can." He looked up to see the bright blue sky, trying to gauge how much sunlight he had left. It wasn't going to get dark soon, plus he hadn't wandered too far from what he was used to, so it wouldn't hurt to keep exploring. He looked around to see that there wasn't anyone that stood out to him, no one casually using their quirks or having obvious features that would lead to more assumptions. Aside from the passing hero, it was hard to write down notes based on normal people. Where else am I gonna find interesting quirks? He thought out loud, almost defeated. He felt as though he spent too much time on far too little, though the fact that he had extensive notes on quirks was unique in it of itself. "Whatcha got there?" Yet again Izuku found himself turning around in surprise. This time there was another stranger next to him that he didn't notice, a teenage girl with energetic blonde hair and messy twin buns for hair, wearing a preppy beige school uniform and a cute red tie. Though Izuku couldn't get a proper feel for her intention, her blood-red eyes seemed to be focused on his notebook. "Ha!" he yelped, both surprised that a stranger snuck up to him and that he was standing so close to a girl. "I have to pay better attention, that's the second person that snuck up on me." "What's that?" she prodded again, curiosity overtaking her as she pointed towards the book. The girl observed as the green-haired boy struggled to collect his thoughts and feelings, blushing both out of nervousness and panic. It took a while, but when he finally caught his breath he returned a shaky smile. "You scared me." "Yeah, that's it," he both stated and assured himself, forcing his earlier panic out of his system before he made a bigger fool of himself. "Teh, you're kinda cute, you know that," she teased, making him blush again as he scratched the back of his head, not knowing what to do with himself. Thanks," he thanked nervously before he shook his head yet again, trying to focus. "You wanted to know about this?" he asked, pointing to the book on his other hand, and receiving a nod as a reply. "It's a journal that I use to write down different quirks I discover. It's a hobby of mine." "You like to know about quirks?" she asked, rather confused. "Of course," he beamed. "It's so nice to see and learn about quirks and how they work. Everything about them make people so special, it's pretty easy to get jealous sometimes." Although the strange blonde girl seemed to smile along with Izuku's enthusiasm, it was the final statement of his that made her smile flicker. As interesting as she found this random, nervous wreck of a boy, she couldn't agree with his sentiment. "Oh, then do you wanna see my quirk?" she teased playfully, making Midoriya smile with glee. Another quirk. It was just a second ago that he felt a little lost, so this would be great. "Yeah, I'd love to see it. Follow me then." The girl walked through the crowd of people in their way and headed into a darkened alleyway, away from the public eyes. As sketchy as it seemed, Izuku paid no attention to his surroundings and could only wonder what kind of quirk she had. "All right, give me your hand." Blindly, Midoriya gave the girl his left hand, watching as she stared excitedly at it. There was a sort of hunger that appeared in her face, like a tiger on the verge of pouncing on its prey. "What could she want with my hand?" he asked himself, only now taking in his situation. Walking into an alleyway with a stranger he didn't know. Hold on. He did it again, didn't he? Before he could ask any questions, the strange girl pulled a mysterious knife from her back and used it to slice a bit of his palm, making him yell out in sudden pain. He tried to pull his hand away, but the girl only held it tight with her other arm, refusing to let it go. "Oh, don't be such a buzzkill, it's almost over," she exclaimed happily as she shook the blood off of the knife and stored it away. Oddly enough, she pulled out a small container from her skirt and held it under the bloodied hand, squeezing it and watching as blood poured into the clear glass vial. As it did so, tears ran down Izuku's face as he allowed the event to transpire, unsure of whether he should do something or not. It felt dirty in a way, allowing her to bleed his hand and pour his blood into the glass, but the curiosity of what was to come kept his feet planted firmly and his body frozen, only using his spare arm to wipe away the tears of pain. Just a little bit more and there. Eventually, the vial was filled to the brim with red blood from Izuku, greatly satisfying her. She took a good whiff of the blood before she held it over her mouth and allowed a single drop to fall into her mouth. To Izuku's surprise, a strange clay-like substance began to form around her face and hands, taking on a new color and shape until eventually he was staring at a live copy of himself, wearing girl's clothing. So good," Izuku exclaimed, his voice being inflected with a higher and more excited pitch, but nonetheless the same as his normal voice. "What was that? How did you do that?" The real Izuku asked curiously, the surprise overtaking his pain. Was it because she drank his blood? "It's my quirk. Can't you tell?" he responded to himself. "I can drink people's blood and turn into them. The more I drink, the longer the effect lasts." On cue, Izuku's face began melting off from his head, forcing him to wipe it away and allow the rest to fall off of him. Soon, Izuku became the blonde girl once again. "Ah, did it hurt you? I'm really sorry if it did, but I love the taste of your blood." She smiled again. The boy was at a loss of words, unsure of what to think. He was stuck in such a strange situation with such a strange person that he couldn't tell if he should be apprehensive, mad or even upset with what happened. Instead, he drew a shaky breath and wiped another tear from his eye, sniffling. "Sorry, you just caught me by surprise," he assured her. "I guess I did ask for it, can't really blame her here." "Ah, you're just so cute." She laughed again, blushing a little bit at seeing the young boy act brave. "You're the first person who didn't run away from me, that's so nice." Thanks." As a sign of her gratitude, the girl pulled out a small bundle of bandages and went through the trouble of wrapping them around the injured hand, stopping the bleed from getting infected. When she finished, Midoriya flexed his weak hand and felt the cut shift as he did so. "I'm glad you gave me your blood, I'll make sure to savor it." She smiled again. "I'm Himiko Toga, what's your name?" "Midoriya." "Izuku Midoriya," he responded with hesitation. "Then I hope to meet you again, Izuku," she declared, giving him a kiss on the cheek and skipping away happily, singing a small tune to herself. Izuku could only stand still and absorb the events with a pained hand. The strange girl not only stabbed his hand, but liked it too. Not to mention she didn't hesitate to use his first name, call him cute, or give him a kiss on the cheek. For being the first time he ever talked to a girl, it was quite the meeting. What was up with her? Was his remaining thought before he walked out of the alleyway. Determined, he opened his journal and began writing about the new quirk right away, beginning with the sketch of Toga. As much as Izuku knew about the world with every day, it seemed that he learned simultaneously more and less about it. Heroes were bad, society was messed up, and people like Toga existed as well. Sensei's right, at least in some parts. I need to learn much more if I ever want to grow. Inside of a dark and secluded facility, there hid an evil secret, shrouded in despair and malevolence. The lights were never turned on, but that was simply because the head of the facility didn't need them to see. That, and there was a certain comfort and excitement that the man drove from being covered by the darkness, unseen by any and all who dare enter. The staple figure of the underworld crime syndicate, the bane of all that was good, a demon reborn. All for one continued to plan and scheme with one of his right-hand men. And what of the Nomu? He asked the TV screen in front of him, displaying the darkened image of what appeared to be an old man wearing goggles, though his features were hidden by his dark lab. Their production is coming along well. We have a substantial amount of Nomu on reserve for you to expend should you need to. A calm and reserved voice replied. Quote, And what of the All Might Killer? A short pause was followed by a small sigh of defeat. I'm sorry to say, my master, but the weapon is still under production. The copying of quirks could take a few months to finish. Then I'm satisfied. Alert me when the production ceases, and I shall find when the time is ripe. Behind the Demon Lord incarnate, two purple voids masked behind the darkness appeared. Out came Kurogiri, who was but a shadowed figure with glowing yellow eyes amidst the darkness. Beside him was also a shadowed figure, though his features were completely hidden. Master, I'm here to report. Kurogiri bowed before him. Speak. Young Midoriya made bountiful progress in his assignment, and has submitted his prototype. Without another word, Kurogiri created another portal and teleported the small, lime-green notepad that Izuku provided and have it to All for One. Though he couldn't read it directly, he could feel the pages and guess how many he was able to fill with his pen, which was a lot. Then everything went well, I take it. No harm came to him while he was away. He sustained a slight injury in his left hand, a cut that was patched by the same girl who made it. Kurogiri explained. It was to discover her quirk, which required his blood. I did not intervene for he wasn't in danger. Quote, Acceptable. All for One stated, returning the notebook. Who's Midoriya? A raspy and irritated voice spoke up. Beside Kurogiri, the shadowy figure was restless. It, or he, had no idea who they were talking about, and the secret was getting to be a bother. He's another project of mine. With due time you shall meet him, do not fret. All for One responded, ignoring the way his pupil spoke out of turn. If I may, the screen interjected, may I know the purpose of recruiting the boy? You've gone through more than enough effort for what could possibly be another Nomu. That's because he won't be. All for One answered. He's a personal project of mine. Though he has his uses now, his ideals and views are more unfavorable. But, with enough time and effort, I believe he will become a loyal subject to our cause. I see. But, what of his quirk? If I remember correctly, he didn't have one. All for One smiled at the response, feeling the excitement that came with speaking his next words. That Izuku, he was all too similar to his little brother from many, many years back. His views, his personality, his vulnerability. Whereas before he made the mistake of trusting his brother blindly, this time he will be able to mold the young mind to see what he sees. To become what Yoichi failed to become. Where he failed before, he won't fail this time. This time, he will do what he wasn't able to do before. He will make the boy his loyal subject. Don't worry, he smiled, almost evilly. I have the perfect quirk for him. Days pass at a time with no real difference between them. The same as ever occurs again and again, only this time with slight distinctions. With Izuku's new position as a villain, he finds himself exploring the cityscape very often. With notebook on hand, he writes down every quirk he can find and even talks to the quirk user on occasion. When he became a villain, he expected to find himself in a deep, dark room working to the bone on research and strategies to take down the heroes. Instead, he just found himself outside twice as often. As far as school life went, it was the same as ever for poor Izuku. Even though Bakugo rarely picks on him anymore, his distance is still felt inside of him. Otherwise, he still gets the occasional bully to pass by, or a stray joke that's designed to make fun of him. But unlike before, Izuku is hopeful for his future, as unlikely and as treacherous as it seems. Because while before he could only dream of being a hero, he knew that he was going to change the world, somehow. Inko, on the other hand, enjoyed seeing the progress her son made in his mental health. He went back to smiling normally, as he always did before. He was growing, and while he was rarely at home anymore, he was doing much better than before. She didn't know why he left so often, or even what he plans on doing now that he doesn't want to be a hero, but that doesn't matter for the moment. Right now her son needed a chance to breathe, to fully express himself and grow away from the kid that was so unnaturally obsessed with heroes. On one day, nearly a week after Izuku's fated meeting. I'm going out again, Mom. Izuku shouted by the entrance, already out of his school clothes and into a dark green hoodie with a navy blue shirt, black pants and his favorite red shoes. Okay, stay safe, his mother shouted back. Without another word, Izuku walked out the door and through the apartment complex, taking the same route he always took. I almost forgot that it's been a while since I've seen Sensei. Came the thought. I've been improving my note-taking and handwriting for a whole week, but I still haven't been trained like he promised. Am I doing something wrong? The boy inspected the contents of his notes and sifted through them to see what his figurative problem was. His initial new set of notes were now improved, not only including the weaknesses, strategies and strengths that he left out, but also much more detail in his bare-bones notes. By this point he'd done so much note-taking, observing, brainstorming before bed and copy-pasting old notes, that he was already on his third journal. I've done so much work in such a short time. When will I finally get to train? He thought as he walked down the stairs. I've been doing the same thing I've always been doing before, what's so different now? He was interrupted, however, by bumping into a tall man while he wasn't looking. He shifted back and looked up to see that it was Kurogiri, wearing the exact same outfit he always wore. Oh, sorry, I wasn't looking. That's all right, Midoriya, the shadow man accepted. I see you're out on assignment again. Wasn't it less than half an hour ago that you returned from school? Yeah, I just finished eating. The boy responded, a little flustered. I've been working on my notes like Sensei told me to, and I've been doing a lot of research as to make sure I don't disappoint. Amazing. That's his third book already. Kurogiri was almost baffled, seeing the new, red notebook in his hands. He's so eager to be accepted. But what's up? If you're here where I live, then there must be something important. That you are correct. Master himself asked that I take you to see him and his guest. Afterwards, he asked that you stay over for special training. Training, Midoriya thought, his eyes glowing a little as he placed his notebook into his jacket. This is what he was waiting for. Right, then let's go, Izuku exclaimed, chipper than ever. He was finally going to train, he was waiting for the moment since forever ago. Seeing his enthusiasm, Kurogiri wasted no time as he used his ability to warp him and Izuku away from the district altogether. Elsewhere in a surprisingly well-lit bar, there stood two people inside, waiting to be introduced to their new guest. The building, much unlike All for One's other facilities, was well lit with warm light and featured a bar stocked with alcohol, though none of the usual residents drank any of it. The bar itself was one of All for One's special recreational buildings, meant for meetings or light chatter with important clients, but as of late it's become his pupils' special hangout. Standing tall and proud was the aforementioned All for One, who wore, in addition to his usual black suit, a thick black collar that acted as his special life support, helping him breathe. Over the collar he also wore a black mask with the outline of a skull. Surprisingly, the imposing figure of All for One along with his black mask were still just as threatening and menacing as ever, regardless of the fact that he was not encased in darkness as per usual. When is he gonna get here? The boy next to him asked impatiently. His original pupil, Tamura Shigaraki, stood beside him. He wore a back shirt with black pants and bright red shoes, though what made him stand out were the various dead hands that gripped onto his arms and head in many places, and his flaky skin and unkempt blue hair made him appear like a zombie. Though he was still young, his skin, hair and face completely hidden by a dead hand masked his real age by a few years. Patience, Tamura. Soon the warp villain appeared before them as expected, and standing beside him was an unusually excited Izuku who, upon looking at both his master and the guest in question, received goosebumps all throughout his body, erasing his chipper attitude. Are those real hands? He panicked as he stared directly at Tamura, wide-eyed. The young man in turn only huffed. I'm glad you could make it, Midoriya. It's been quite some time since I've last seen you. I hope you've kept well. All for One greeted, unfreezing Izuku from his panic. Yes, sensei, Izuku shouted as he bowed respectfully, humoring All for One but annoying Tamura. Is this really Master's pet project? He's just some kid, he thought, disappointed. Although his facial expression was hidden, he was scowling behind his mask. He could be gaming, but instead he had to meet some nervous wreck of a kid. No need for such formality, Izuku, I'm only your master. All for one instructed, allowing Izuku to raise his head. He still feared his master even in a well-lit room. This here is my other pupil, Tamura Shigaraki. He introduced by placing a hand over the boy's shoulder. He will be your ally, and like you he is still learning many things, so don't be afraid. Trying to lighten the mood, Izuku reached out his hand towards the boy. Hi, I'm Izuku Midoriya. Instead of shaking his hand, the boy only stared blankly at it in contempt, though it was masked behind the creepy hand he wore. I'm sorry, but Tamura here can't shake your hand due to his quirk. An unfortunate circumstance to be sure. Oh, sorry. What kind of quirk does he have that doesn't let me shake his hand? Well, with introductions out of the way, I believe I must make my exit. There are many things that call for my attention. All for one informed. Kurogiri will oversee your tour and further training. I expect good things from you, Izuku, as you've well since displayed your progress to me. Without another word, All for One created a strange black sludge that enveloped him before disappearing out of thin air, much like Kurogiri does, only much more disgusting. There was a small moment of awkward silence between the remaining three as Izuku tried to ease the tension. So, do you live here? He asked the strange boy in front of him. Shut up, you're annoying, he stated as he wordlessly walked over to the couch that was left in front of the TV. He pulled from a small box beside him two black-colored remotes, one for the TV and the other for a gaming console that was sat beside the TV. Please pardon him, he's very easy to aggravate. Kurogiri excused. But as Master said, I should introduce you to the facilities around this bar, all of which I'm sure you'll find useful. Right, and about the training. Patience, Midoriya, all will come in due time. Near the heart of Tokyo, a few miles away from the famed school for heroes Uwa, there walked two of its students after a long day of school. 2 second years walked back to their apartments where they stayed temporarily, far from their original homes. The first of the two boys was named Tamaki Amajiki, a second year at UA in the hero course, much like his best friend beside him. He had spiked purple hair, pointed ears, and he wore his normal school uniform. Due to his quirk he was regarded to have lots of potential compared to others, but his shyness and general confidence weighed heavily on him, noticeable in his constant slouch and inability to hold a conversation with strangers. The second was Mirio Tagata, also a second year at UA and taking the hero's course. He had blonde hair that created a spike at the front, as well as deep blue eyes and a persistent smile on his face that revealed his easygoing nature. Unlike his friend, he wasn't highly regarded by his class for anything. As useful as his quirk was, he still needed a lot of training in order to use it to its fullest, but it would take a mountain of time and effort for that to ever happen. Class was extra hard today, wasn't it? With finals rearing around the corner, I got to step my game up if I want to pass. Mirio sighed, feeling a little down on his luck. Unlike most schools, UA took much more practical application than it did academic, which could spell disaster for those who still didn't have a good grip on their quirks yet, like him. Please don't remind me, just thinking about it scares me. Tamaki shuddered. By the way, have you applied for any agency lately? No, not yet. Mirio sighed again. I know I should get to work while I practice using my quirk, but I've been training for so much without direction that it's finally starting to weigh on me. Come on, don't say that, you're supposed to be the positive one. Tamaki retorted. You can't just wait for the chance to come by, you gotta start these things as early as you can if you want to become a hero any quicker. Like you've told me 100 times before. Their friendship, as strange as it was, began long before UA. When they were just kids, Mirio was always the one who took charge and stood up for Tamaki, while the other could only watch as he grew in strength and in personality. But as of late he's been feeling a little desperate, since even though his second year at UA was almost up, he couldn't truly feel the progress that he was making, like he wasn't really growing into the hero he wanted to be. Yeah, I guess so. Still, I'm sure it won't be too long before I can get the hang of my power. Right. I guess my lack of confidence finally rubbed off on him. Tamaki could only assume, feeling like a burden for his friend. While Mirio was always the one to pick him up while he was down, he himself couldn't return the favor, as frustrating as it was. I know I've grown a lot, Mirio thought, but there's so much I'm missing to become a hero. I know I can get stronger. But I just can't feel it. As they neared their destination, they entered an apartment complex that was similar to any other one. But as they were about to go up the flight of stairs, they noticed something peculiar. Hey Mirio, I think you got mail. Really? I do, he asked, rounding back to see a paper sticking out of the apartment mailbox by the entrance, specifically coming from the one with his apartment number. The two curious boys walked over and collected the mail, a mysterious envelope that opened to reveal an address to Mirio. And it came from, quote, "You got scouted out by the Night Eye Agency?" Amajiki asked, trying to understand the letter. Potential, Night Eye. Hold on a second. The Night Eye Agency, as in Sir Night Eye. All Might's former sidekick Night Eye. Mirio finished the other's thought, their excitement slowly growing before it finally boiled over as he shouted to the sky, ecstatic with the news. Even his friend couldn't help but grin from the news, the answer to his friend's problem. Holy crap, this is it, my big moment, Mirio exclaimed as he held the paper high into the air. For your talent and potential. That's so awesome, his friend cheered lightly, unable to help himself from Mirio's excitement. The two celebrated for a minute or so before Mirio was hit with a few important questions. Quote, "Hold on, they reached out to me. How did I manage that?" he asked himself. And why now after the school year is nearly over? As unbelievable as the news was, there were also a strange set of circumstances surrounding it. Why would the Night Eye Agency be scouting out new talent now so late into the UA school year? And why him, a slightly above average student? It's not rare that agencies contact you. That's how I got into the Fat Gum Agency. Tamaki reminded his friend. As for why now, that one you'd have to ask yourself. But, I don't think I've worked hard enough to deserve something like this. Mirio thought, gripping the letter in his hands. This truly was a gift from God himself, a new opportunity. It felt so unearned. Shut up. Don't talk like that, Tamaki retorted, now in a serious and slightly angry tone. You've worked harder than anyone I know to get where you are now, so don't say that you haven't. I can't let you talk like that, don't take yourself lightly. Mirio was only impressed with his friend's seriousness, displaying his strong set of beliefs. As shy as he was quick to defend his beliefs and those of his friends, almost forgetting the anxiety he had stored within to jump to the defense. It was admirable, especially for a boy like him who lacked so much confidence that it was a miracle he still lived. Right, thanks, Mirio smiled, making his friend smile warmly in return. Still, I wonder what they want from me. Who knows, but it says you gotta meet Sir Night Eye himself tomorrow. Maybe you can tell me how it goes after school, Amajiki suggested as he walked up the stairs, disappearing from sight and leaving Mirio to ponder his own thoughts. My potential, huh? It didn't take long for the tour to end, visiting a few buildings that were owned by All for One. The small variety of buildings were all on the same block, and the surrounding area was also abandoned for better cover. Since Kurogiri was Tamura and now Izuku's private transport, they didn't have to worry about accidentally revealing their base's location, but even so the entire block lacked cameras unlike the more populated areas of town, as well as people for that matter. The first building was a hotel, old and a bit dusty with less than 50 rooms in total. Their Tamura had a room somewhere within the building, and while most of the building was left unused, it looked well enough for an abandoned hotel. It was also promising for Izuku because if he ever wanted to, he could stay the night for more training or exploring. The second was a simple warehouse with nothing inside. The metal beams and structure itself was a little rusted and dusty, but it existed to serve its purpose as a front for potential meetings or to just store things. The last of the buildings was another warehouse, only this time there were a few distinctions. A large corner of the place was covered with plastic mats on the floors and walls, and across from that were a few benches with weights of different kinds and sizes as well as a pull-up bar. Beside that were dart boards, targets, training dummies and punching bags. The entire facility was repurposed for training in different manners and ways, which Izuku wasn't too sure who these were for other than himself. While Izuku wasn't shown the entire town all at once, he was given the base's location on a map, which was a whole 2 cities away from where he lived. Maybe one day he could explore the city itself, but not today. Today he had training to get to. As the two entered the last of the 3 buildings, Izuku found himself strangely impressed by the hideout. It wasn't a matter of the quality or quantity of the buildings, but the simple fact that someone could hide from the heroes in plain sight was scary in a way. "Wow, do you guys use these to train?" Izuku asked curiously. As of now the only people he knew were Sensei, Tamura and Kurogiri, and none of which looked as though they would use these sorts of things. "Not at all," Kurogiri responded. "I cannot train my raw strength like others can, and neither can Tamura. But Sensei bought these recently for you. He got me my own gym equipment. He also apologizes if the material is inadequate, and that newer and much better equipment will arrive over time." "That's all right, thank you very much," Izuku bowed, flattered that his sensei went through such trouble for his training. "I'm glad to hear it," Kurogiri answered before he cleared his throat, getting Izuku's full attention. "Master left me to instruct your training and your growth, but for now, show me what you can do," he ordered, though the order itself was a bit strange. There was an awkward pause between the two, confusing Izuku. Show you what I can do. Hit me, Midoriya, I want you to hit me." "Oh, right," he said as he prepared a stance of sorts. Although he sees heroes fight on the regular and even knows some of their techniques, he still didn't understand how to fight on his own. He knew what a punch was and how to do it, but not when to throw it, so to speak. His stance was also all off, mimicking a hero he once saw as he placed his hands to his sides and stared at Kurogiri, in a bracing manner rather than an attacking one. He's entirely out of his element here, replicating only what he sees from the heroes. Kurogiri observed as his hands remained behind his back casually. Without another word, Izuku charged after the warp villain, running as fast as he could before he threw his right arm after the mist man. But rather than hit anything, Kurogiri evaporated as he teleported behind Izuku, making him stumble forward. He was left baffled as he struggled to recover, only to feel a cold slap hit him from the back of the head. "Ow, that hurt," Izuku complained as he turned to see his trainer. "I never once said that it would be easy," he teased playfully. "Then this just got much harder than I realized," Izuku analyzed as he took up a better stance, putting his hands to the ground and crouching low for a potential burst of speed. Again he ran after Kurogiri and yet again he missed his attack, getting slapped in the back of the head. He turned around and tried the same tactic again, only for history to repeat itself a few times over. No matter what methods or stances Izuku came up with, he just couldn't run fast enough to catch the villain, nor could he recover in time for the counterattack. "This is impossible. I can't run fast enough to catch him when he escapes, and I'm always open to his attack," he thought, seeing the clear flaw in his repeated tactic. There was no way that he could even hope to catch the teleporting villain, much less the way he was now. But if he could just see another way to hit him. As Izuku took a step back to think a little more, he accidentally stepped on a small 5-pound dumbbell that was left on the floor, perplexing him. Kurogiri never said he couldn't use objects around him to his advantage. "I got it." Quickly, Izuku picked up the light weight beside him and threw it at Kurogiri, making his quirk yet again to effortlessly avoid the attack. As he appeared behind the boy and readied his hand for his counter, Izuku ducked in the nick of time, spinning around to deliver a quick punch to Kurogiri's gut, which did nothing. Rather than feel good over his achievement, Izuku was shocked to find out that his attack had absolutely no effect on the man. He knew his body was nimble and all, but no effect. He didn't even flinch. "Impressive, you saw right through the pattern. As expected from a boy like you," Kurogiri complimented, more focused on the positive than the negative. The entire point of the warm-up was to test Izuku's smarts, since his brawn was nowhere near close to his. Not because of any quirk, but because Izuku was far too fraile for a kid as is. "I don't get it, was that all I've got?" Izuku wondered, hopeless that his punch was so weak. "That's indeed true for the moment. But there's a reason why you need training. No one begins their journey perfect after all. That's good to know, thanks," Izuku replied, slightly more motivated in himself. He was right, Surely someone like All Might had to train before he became so strong. As the boy began his exercises, Kurogiri paid close attention to the kid's weaknesses and strengths. He was personally instructed to help Izuku go as far as he could possibly go without a quirk, to break his limits. It confused him as to why he needed to do these things, since All for One could simply grant Midoriya a quirk without the need to prepare beforehand. Whatever it was that All for One planned, he wasn't privy to it, but Kurogiri did as he told. For now, it was his job to oversee Izuku, and he will do so effectively and efficiently. The next day, many miles away from the school of UA stood a large 5-story building, the headquarters of the Sernidai agency. Compared to the rest of the buildings nearby, it didn't stand out as much as one would expect, matching the same height as most other buildings around and being made of an identical structure as all the others. To the uninformed, one would have easily passed the building as nothing more than another office place of sorts. But to people such as Mirio, the building stood tall and imposing before him as he stared into the glass with awe and nervousness. The teenage boy traveled an hour by train to get to the agency, which was a real pain to deal with the crowd traffic and the distance from UA, but when he arrived he could feel his heart skip a beat. This was it. I can't believe Sernidai sought me out. Can he see something about me? He asked himself as he gripped the sides of his pants. While he was by no means an All Might superfan, he knew that Sernidai was All Might's former sidekick who could predict the future in a way. Why he of all people would seek out an unassuming kid like Mirio was a mystery, but it filled him with an odd sense of confidence that he was spotted by someone so big, while stripping away his normal positive attitude. He had to take this seriously. Once the nervousness subsided a little, Mirio was able to force himself through the glass doors of the office space and into the lobby, where he saw absolutely nothing of interest. Not that the place wasn't vibrating with busy activities like the receptionists answering phone calls or people walking from one place to the next, but to anyone else it looked like a standard day at an office than a hero agency. Then again, I didn't know what to expect, the boy shrugged as he felt the tension ease away from him. Compared to the one other time he had a work-study earlier the same year, the building wasn't too different from other agency buildings either. "Oh hey, you made it," a voice said from the nearby, making Mirio turn to face the source of the noise. Walking towards him was a scantily dressed, blue-skinned woman wearing what could be guessed as her hero uniform. She had deep blue hair with gray eyes, and wore a see-through gas mask over her face. She wore a white and blue shirt that cut just below her slightly exposed S as well as dark blue gloves over her hands. She had extremely small white shorts with an open zipper that only slightly covered her black leggings that went under her large white boots. While she did reveal a lot of skin for a hero, it wasn't rare for female heroes to be loosely dressed either because of their quirks or to simply attract a specific audience, though the former was certainly the case over the latter. "Hi, I'm Kaoruko Iwata, Sernidai's sidekick, but call me Bubble Girl." She introduced herself. "You must be Mirio." Yeah I am. How did you know?" "Sernidai expected you, so he sent me to fetch you." She explained easily. "Follow me, I'll take you to see him." Without any delay, Bubble Girl brought Mirio to Nighteyes' personal quarters, another office space that was at the 5th and final floor of the building. As they traveled, Mirio could feel his ever-increasing tension rise slowly as he got closer and closer to Nighteyes' office. "Hey, take it easy. You don't get anything from overthinking," the woman advised Mirio bluntly, sensing the stress he was under. It was common for her to see others get intimidated by Night-Eye, so by this point she was only repeating something she'd say to newcomers. Mirio heeded her advice as he forced a few deep breaths, though still a little shaky. He didn't know what to expect, and by this point the nerves were getting to him. "Thanks," he thanked before they finally reached the door to the office. There was a long moment of hesitation as Mirio stared at the door, lacking a lot of the confidence that he was usually well known for having. It was so incredibly intimidating for him to take such a big leap all of a sudden. What if he looked stupid in front of him? "Hey, do you have any advice I could borrow? I'm feeling a bit scared right now." He chuckled lightheartedly, forcing a weak smile. The blue woman chuckled in her response, seeing the young teenager so filled with nervousness. "Just smile, make a joke or two. Sir loves people who can act casually under pressure." Make a joke, Mirio asked himself, surprised as he took a second to bridle his nerves, albeit a bit unsuccessful. Act casually. I got it, thanks, he said as he entered the room before he could regret his decision. When he entered, the first thing he noticed was that the office space, though it looked much like any other, was also chock full of All Might merchandise and memorabilia. From posters, to a few dolls on a shelf, to even a cardboard cutout, the room had a pretty heavy dose of All Might within, reminiscent of Night Eye's ties to him. And sitting on the desk rather impatiently was the man himself, tall and skinny with small yellow glasses. He had dark green hair with strands of yellow as well as intense yellow eyes. He also wore a light gray suit with a polka dot tie. As strange as he looked, the most important aspect was his serious expression that was always highlighted by the occasional shine of his glasses. Hi, I'm Mirio Tagata. Sorry to, catch you by surprise, though I guess nothing catches you off guard, huh? Mirio tried to ease the tension, as the pro-hero sat completely still, seemingly uncaring. So, you wanted to see me? Mirio silenced himself, feeling his skin crawl out of embarrassment. There was an awkward moment of silence as the still hero remained so, carefully analyzing Mirio from where he sat before he stood up from his chair, knowing everything he needed. Firstly, you don't need to introduce yourself, I already know very well who you are. He lectured, making Mirio swallow his own spit. You're a student at UA High School under the Hero course, an overall average student with average grades and a decent quirk. Guess I'm really making a fool of myself, Mirio thought as he could feel Night Eye's intense gaze staring at him. And secondly, you get a C on remaining casual, though to be fair you've already entered a potentially hostile situation willing to lighten up. Acceptable, he continued analyzing, which surprised Mirio. So acting casual was the way to go. Sorry what, my sidekick was correct in telling you that I value people who can act casually under stress, because people like All Might are vital in keeping the peace around the world, and one of his key aspects is his ability to handle stress with ease. That's why I value a more casual approach to harrowing, the man explained, answering a question that Mirio had. And before he could even ask his second he was already answering it. You want to know why I applied you to my agency? Why yeah, how'd you know? Basic intuition, he responded, but as to why I wanted to invite you personally. Without much of a word the man placed a hand behind Mirio's neck, purple light shining from his arm as he stared deeply into his eyes. Before him he saw a short glimpse of a future, a young man with blonde hair, a white suit and a red cape striking the same pose as All Might, taking up his stance both literally and symbolically. He was right in sending him here. I can see a bright future ahead of him. Night Eye thought. Days earlier, you want me to train Mirio Tagata? Night Eye found himself asking through the phone as he stared at a file of UA High School records. That's right, I've made my decision on the future of One for All. I'm sure if you look into the file further you'll see just why. The voice of Toshinori Yagi, or All Might, spoke through the phone. It's been years since they've spoken to each other, so for him to call out of the blue was certainly strange. Sure enough the clairvoyant was able to see the reason behind this. Mirio, as described by the file, was known as a light-hearted teenager with a general do-good attitude. While his quirk was quite powerful for its current standing, it was another part that intrigued the green-haired man. His goal is to save 1 million lives, huh? That's quite the ambition for a boy like him. That's true, but it's that sort of thinking that I'm looking for in the next symbol of peace. Someone who doesn't want to be a hero for the benefits but for the sole sake of saving lives. All Might stated. Night Eye conceded. He too could see why Mirio was chosen, and with potential like his it was only the current matter of making him more powerful. So, you want me to prepare him as a vessel for One for All, do you? It's not just that, he said, I want you to release all of his hidden potential, to make him as strong as he can be on his own. And only then will I feel comfortable in passing down this power. He definitely has room to grow, that's for certain. He thought as he walked back to his chair. I wanted you to come here because I can see the potential within you. You may be an average student at the moment, but your convictions are what interest me. My convictions, Mirio thought, before coming to the realization of what he meant. Oh, my hero name. With my training, he continued, you'll become much stronger than you are now. With my guidance you can achieve your dream of saving 1,000,000 lives and more. Really, you mean it? Of course, I see a great future ahead of you, and it's because of that I'm willing to train you to become the best version of yourself. Suddenly, Sir Night-Eye pulled an application paper that he stored in his desk, already filed out with as much information as he could add about Mirio, and lacked everything minus the boy's signature and the hero's stamp of approval. And with little hesitation, he pulled out a stamp as well and slammed it to the sheet of paper, engraving it with the logo for his hero agency into it. The notion deeply shocked Mirio. Was he really so motivated that he accepted Mirio almost instantly? With this stamp you're now my official pupil, and as such I expect nothing less than your very best and more. Sir Night-Eye proclaimed before glaring at Mirio with a shine in his glasses. Now, prove yourself. Back in the district of Musudafu, an obnoxious blonde middle schooler laid in his bed, bored out of his mind. His room was fairly plain for a boy like him, just a bed, white walls, a poster here and there, and a desk with his computer. But there were also one or two other things that stood out. A drum set in the corner of the room that he rarely used, a small bookshelf with various books ranging from comics to even cooking books that his parents gave him. He had a wide assortment of tastes that were hard to pinpoint, and one could never tell from a boy like him unless he were to show you, which he never did. As of late things have been going pretty smoothly for him. Grades were high, the school year was nearly over, and the UA tryouts were in only a handful of months away. Pretty soon he'll have to start training both his body and quirk for the tryouts. I'll be the only one in this stinkin' town that applies now that Deku finally gave up. He realized, huffing as he thought so. That green-haired friend of his pissed him off more than anyone else, and it wasn't just because he was a nerd. His dreams were the same as his, wanting to become a great hero in the future, but to think of something so bold, so terrifying whilst being so powerless filled him with such an unreasonable amount of rage. Only people like him could dream of being a hero, having such a powerful quirk compared to all of the rest. It was practically destiny. Luckily, Deku finally caught his senses recently and pulled his applications, which pleased him. He'd better if he knows what's good for him, he thought before finally calming down. With Deku out of his way, there was no need to worry about something so unreasonable. Soon he, as well as every other extra in his town, will fade into the background as he, Katsuki Bakugo, rises above the ranks. They say that only less than 1% of applicants enter. But with a power like mine, I'll be sure to enter. Bakugo thought confidently, though there were hidden doubts inside of him that held him back. For one, there were thousands of other participants. While his quirk was strong, he didn't know how strong others can be. That said, there were also some that got into UA through recommendations, which limited the amount of spots that were available already. Secondly, people still ragged on him about the slime villain incident from a week ago. Since he made headline news and he was saved by All Might himself, he doubted that his name would leave people's minds anytime soon. Which was just annoying. His mother was his biggest critic of them all. Be stronger next time, she'd say. Then again, it was true for his case. Had he been stronger, had his quirk been more developed, he never would have been captured in the first place. And now he had that mark on him, a scar for all to see and know him as. The helpless boy who was saved by All Might that one time. GCH, like hell I will. He raged, slamming a coiled fist into his soft bed. Small sparks danced in his palm as he did so. Now was about time he took action, that he make a name for himself. UA was the first step towards his bright future, the step that everyone keeps nagging him about. He was destined to be the next number one, and with a power like his he was sure of it. He will get into UA, and he will crush those tryouts. But you can't just get things done by dreaming. He scolded himself, jumping from his bed. You need the drive to get shit done, and the power to back it up. And unlike everyone else, I got both. Hyping himself up, he went into his closet to change clothes, and soon he was wearing a black track suit with small flame designs around for more flair, as well as black tennis shoes. In a pocket he also kept a few empty balloons for a small idea he had, one involving his quirk. It was crude, but there was no harm in trying, or at least no harm for him. But before heading out his door, the blond boy looked at the mirror that was posted against a wall. He stared intensely at his figure, marking down every attribute and flaw that he could pick apart before leaving. He's changed a lot since he was a boy, and it greatly showed in his lack of a genuine smile, replaced by a cocky smirk that he flashed to himself, be it to display his confidence, or hide his fear. This is the start of everything, he thought. After I'm done, I'll blow everyone out of the competition, and I'll be the new number one. He thought as he soon made his way out of his house. His goals were set long before he himself made them. It was fate that he would grow into the person that everyone expected him to become. Strong, tough, powerful. It was in his nature, in his quirk, that he'd become a great man. By now he was only reminding himself of what he wanted to do, what he was meant to do, and that was to grow up to be the person everyone said he'd be. A few days had gone by for the young Bakugo, and his self-training was only just beginning. With school now out and over with, he could finally focus on himself for a change. For the next few months he planned on training his body relentlessly until he was at his peak condition, a baseline requirement to get into UA. His parents sparsely care about what he did in his free time, though his mother was the most motivated to make sure her son was training, to which he was. As the blonde-haired boy sprinted at full speed one evening, he stopped to catch his breath, panting as he leaned against a bench beside him. It was only his second day of self-training and already he was improving, able to run a bit longer at full speed than when he started, though how far that took him from home was the least of his concerns. As the boy sat down, he removed his black jacket with red flames to reveal his black tank top underneath. It felt like he was giving off steam from his body as he removed the jacket and wrapped it around his waist. The boy chugged a small portion of the oversized bottle he had with him and took a second to recover his body, tired from the constant running. By what he could tell, he was a few miles away from his home, just beside an abandoned beach. In his pocket he stored a small rubber balloon that he kept around for a small experiment, a way of testing his power. Inside was a small bit of sweat that he managed to store from his palms, concentrating enough for it not to explode. Carefully, he opened the balloon again and poured some more of his sweat into it before tying it, creating what was effectively a gross concoction of his imagination. But secretly, the ingenuity behind it wasn't something all of too common. When stared at the balloon, he realized that not only was his experiment far too tedious and time-consuming to make, but also very hard to use in public, prying eyes. "I can't test this damn thing anywhere," he complained as he carefully set it beside him, placing a hand over it so that it doesn't accidentally activate. He looked around his environment to suddenly notice the large trash mound that loomed a small distance away. Far inland of the beach there laid a staggering amount of trash that was simply collected for no one to care about it, polluting and ruining the otherwise okay-ish atmosphere of the beach. The hell? Where did that thing come from? Quickly he made his way towards the trash mound to see its full scale and length. It took up a sizable portion of the beach and consisted of varying types of trash, from broken refrigerators, coolers and general electronics to entire car parts, car frames and tires too. It was an extremely hard to miss sight that, most likely, resulted from this area of town being more unkept than anything. Of course, it wasn't rare that certain parts of town were more rundown than others, in part because of hero activity being lower in certain places than others, resulting in a small rise in underground crime. This trash mound, seemingly, was a result of not only the poverty of the area but the lack of people caring enough to take care of their own property. Quite messed up that people could be so uncaring, but equally screwed up that no one cared to clean it. The boy wandered into the area with a general curiosity that attracted him to the place. He knew that he was in a bad part of town, but to think he'd find a sight like this was really telling. It wasn't really his intention to run into a place like this or even clean it up, but it did have some promises. This damn dirty trash dump, how the hell can people be so disgusting? "Clean your own damn trash," he complained as he found himself staring down a rusted chassis of a car. In being surrounded by useless junk that people could only ever want gone, he got a bright idea. With little further thought he placed the liquid-filled balloon in the middle of the chassis and walked a few paces away. He assumed, seeing that no one was around, that no one would stop him or even care that he destroy a few things. He grinned wildly at the thought of getting away with what he was about to do. Die, he yelled as he threw his right arm forward and created a large explosion with his quirk, shooting sparks out that detonated a little late. Unsurprisingly, the explosion immediately pierced through the concentrated ball of sweat and activated it, creating a violent explosion that blasted the car into a million flying pieces of scrap metal. With a malicious grin he witnessed the rubble disappear before his very eyes. He could use this place for training. While it was so far away and isolated that he could train to his heart's content, he was simultaneously doing the damn city a favor. They should be paying him by the end of this. Now this is what I mean by training, he thought as he cockily slammed his fists into each other, creating a puff of smoke as his quirk activated unconsciously. In the short span of time that had passed since his training began, Midoriya was already improving his body, pushing himself daily in order to meet and even exceed the expectations placed on him. As of yet he's only been doing basic strength and endurance training with Kurogiri, running laps, lifting weights and doing other common yet heavy exercises in order to temper his body. Already the boy has been able to improve his capabilities a little, going from 50 laps around the warehouse to 60, and soon 65. In the same breath he was able to meet his limits. In the current moment Izuku laid shirtless over the bench, his pale, skinny and sweaty body didn't seem to be making any progress in its growth, but it was only the first few days after all. In his arms he bench pressed a 70-pound barbell, huffing a little as he did so. 5. 0.6. 0.7. 0.8. Kurogiri counted for him as he observed carefully. When Izuku started he was most comfortable with the total of 60 pounds, but for some reason he wanted to add 10 more pounds. Midoriya was able to complete his set of 10 bench presses, but he struggled to lift the barbell for the 10th and final time, his hands and arms shaking from the effort and fatigue. He was able to do it, but not without expending himself. 10, he exclaimed, setting the piece of equipment back into its stand and sitting up to catch his breath. Not only were his arms on fire, but so were his legs and chest. Less than 10 minutes ago he ran several laps, and without hesitation he set himself on the bench for more. If you find yourself unable to continue, Midoriya, then you must take a short rest, we still have the whole day to continue. Kurogiri suggested, but the tired kid only shook his head. It's fine. The point of the exercise is to strain my body, so that it grows stronger. He huffed, analyzing as he usually did. So the more effort I put in, the stronger I'll become. That's one way of putting it. Kurogiri agreed, though it was a question of how sound those tactics were. To anyone else they were quite self-destructive, but to Izuku they were the most logical course of action, regardless of his physical capabilities. He has plenty of room to grow before Master can give him a new quirk. Kurogiri thought to himself. The dark purple shadow still had no clue what quirk Izuku would receive in the near future, an emitter type, a physical type, or maybe a mutant type too. But what was more confusing was the way All for One presented the idea. If not to take control of him, then why go through such trouble of training him too? And how was he going to influence the young mind with a quirk alone? The questions were numerous, and even as All for One's right-hand man he still wasn't told much else. But for now, he did what he was told. He began their first training session by making Izuku do a plethora of push-ups, sit-ups, etc. While he was being soft for the moment, he was instructed to push Izuku as far as he could, for whatever reason. Not that he had to anyway, Izuku was doing that last part himself. And what of your diet? Have you made the recommended changes? Of course, Izuku stated. My mom was able to change my diet since I'm exercising so much now, I'm eating nearly twice as much as before. Good, Kurogiri stated before he watched as Izuku laid back down for more exercises, unrelenting as always. He saw as the boy struggled to lift the thing back up, but with sheer will alone he was able to trudge through half of his set before his shaky hands started shaking a little too much. Without a second thought Kurogiri used his teleportation quirk to remove the barbell and set it aside harmlessly, thumping violently as Izuku pulled his hands out of the portal. Sorry, He huffed as he let his arms hang to the sides, burning in an unrelenting pain. It was like they were going to snap if he hadn't stopped in that moment. That's all right, young Midoriya, but it's not healthy for you to push yourself so far. The Shadow Man advised. Your will to break your limits is strong, but your body can't keep up with your expectations. Right, Izuku huffed, sitting up and drinking more water. In watching him develop rather quickly, Kurogiri could only wonder about the boy's tenacity and sense of will. Even for a hormonal teen with the need to prove himself, this was an unnatural amount of inner strength that he had, especially for a kid like himself. Might I ask why you are so eager to prove yourself? He asked the exhausted teen. It took a while for the boy to think of a proper answer, both out of fatigue and his complicated feelings. But in the end he had only half of an answer to give. Quote, "It's because I want to be stronger, to save people." He huffed, only taking a moment to catch his breath. Oh, well, he thought back, Sensei became my master because he can see my potential too. And since no one else has done that before, I guess I want to impress him too. He spoke honestly. Interesting. Kurogiri contemplated. You know, you're a very special case, young Midoriya. As a villain, you strive to become a hero that saves others. Yeah, does that seem stupid? Izuku asked, doubting himself for the validity of his position. It depends. Are you willing to follow Master's orders? He interrogated. At the end of the day you are still a villain breaking the law, and by no means a hero. If and when Master asks something of you, can we trust you enough to follow through? These hard-hitting questions needed to be asked now more than ever, answers to the inconsistencies Izuku has. He wants to save people, yet can he truly be trusted to stay on their side? Midoriya thought clearly and deeply about his answers, knowing that what comes next could either doom him or save him from his predicament. He was going way too far for a normal person to see through his dreams, especially for a kid his age. And yet he still questioned the backwards logic that came with him joining of the villains. He wasn't going to become a cold-blooded killer or hardened crook like other criminals, yet he was learning under one of the evilest men known to history. With a promise of strength and a new perspective on society, was he really willing to accept these new conditions? I still don't know. He answered honestly, but Sensei says that he can see something in me, the ability to change society. I still don't know how or why. But maybe it's because I can save people, even as a villain. How so? The man pried further. All my life people looked down on me for trying to be a hero, and because of that I was cast away for who I was. So, if Sensei himself says that I can be myself, then I'm willing to follow him. I want to help the people that the heroes can't save, even if that means I break the law to do it. The man was impressed with his answer, shocked even. To think that someone so passionate and simultaneously determined could exist was surprising. Even given the conditions of being outside the law, the world protected by those heroes he still admires, his motivation to help others is too great. It's a wonder how Master will bend him to his will. His ideals, they're almost exactly the same as All Might's. Kurogiri observed, though he's more than willing to follow him to the darker side of the law. Whether or not he'll be accepting of people like Tamura, or accepted by him for that matter, was still a great question. I'm not sure why Master wants the boy to break his limits or join his side with starkly contrasting views, but the only thing I can do is follow his orders to the best of my ability. I see, he responded, changing the subject again. Why not finish the exercise later? For now I'll occupy you with a few sit-ups since that's more your speed. He stated. Midoriya, not seeing any way he can finish the exercise without a proper rest, agreed as he sat on the floor and immediately began his exercises, more than willing to break his body if it meant he'll achieve his dreams. Elsewhere, in an underground training facility, Mirio trained to his heart's content. In no time at all he took up his position as Sir Night-Eye's pupil with a powerful enthusiasm that impressed those around him, spending very little time to himself and devoting all of his efforts into both school and his hero work. Likewise Sir Night-Eye diligently oversaw his training, and at the current moment he fought with the teenager inside of an underground facility under his agency. It was a plain white room made of solid concrete, only a little larger than most office buildings. Your attacks are still sloppy, adjust them. he ordered as he avoided yet another right hook. With little to no effort he avoided the quick flurry of bland and pointless attacks from Mirio by dodging, and it wasn't until the barrage was over did he throw his own strike. He made a chopping motion after Mirio's neck, but in the same instant he activated his quirk, making the attack pass through him and countering with a punch to Night Eye's exposed side. Yet in a swift motion the clairvoyant hero sidestepped outwards, avoiding the attack and using his leg to quickly sweep Mirio from his feet. This time he was too off guard to activate his quirk on time, making him fall onto his back. "Gah, damn, I thought I had you," he chuckled as he jumped back to his feet. "You know that's not the true objective of this task," Night Eye lectured. "If at any moment I decide to counter, you should be ready to activate your quirk and avoid my attack." "Yeah, but the problem is I can't react so fast." Tiredly the man sighed to himself, his lesson still not sinking in with the teenager. "Then predict their movements, anticipate their attacks and stay on your guard at every moment." "I still don't get it," he admitting, only making Night Eye angry. "Then learn," he shouted, only to catch himself in his frustration and put a palm on his face. "I don't understand." All Might chose him to become his successor, yet he still can't even fathom the idea of predicting an opponent's attacks during combat. He ranted to himself. It was needlessly frustrating on his part to teach Mirio. The boy, well-meaning as he was, couldn't grow at the rate that he expected from the golden child, the supposed prodigy. Like All Might he needed to be strong, intelligent and kind, and while he was perfect in the last quality he sorely lacked the first one. But in the end it was his own expectations that weighed down his patience. His teachings were meant to craft the perfect vessel for one for all, and if things don't go as perfectly as they need to then the bright future he witnessed would come much later than sooner. "I need to temper my own expectations, as hard as that is," he admitted to himself. The legend of the number one hero wasn't grown overnight. The boy's still learning. "Hey, sir." The man, upon realizing that he stood still for too long, looked up at his student with a blank expression to see the hopeful boy. Rather than hurt him, his outburst seemed to have motivated him further, giving him an energy that wasn't there before. "I want to go again now. I still don't understand a few things, but I swear that I'm not gonna let you down," Mirio declared proudly, placing his full confidence in his abilities. "Then show me," Night Eye declared as he suddenly threw a fist at Mirio. Rather than use his quirk, however, Mirio instead shifted his head and dodged the attack, as well as the following string of clearly telegraphed punches. "Restraining the use of your quirk. A bold strategy, and one that won't take you far," Night Eye declared as he continued with his string of attacks. Slowly he ramped up the speed of his attacks, throwing punches with lightning-fast precision. Though Mirio was able to react fast enough to avoid the attacks, he soon started to backtrack as Night Eye's attacks got wilder. Eventually Mirio was met with a powerful swinging fist that he blocked and tried to counter with his punch, but as usual Night Eye avoided the attack by shifting to the side and sweeping the floor with his leg. Surprisingly, Mirio instead opted to use his quirk to disappear into the ground, allowing Night Eye to recover from the floor. He's going to use his quirk to propel himself from the floor and fake a strike, leading into a well-timed kick, he predicted as he stood completely still. Soon enough the future he saw happened as he backstepped out of the way of a rising fist coming from the ground. Whilst suspended in the air, the naked Mirio shifted in the air and launched a backwards kick aimed straight at the man's head. Luckily for Night Eye, he saw the move coming and rather than block or much less receive the attack, he instead ducked and used his intense flexibility to send a lariat kick that passed through the boy with ease. Seeing his opportunity, Mirio attempted to use his fall to strike his mentor, extending his arm and swinging it downwards as he fell. In response, the exposed Night Eye was somehow able to hop with one foot and crane kick his student with a speed and agility that far trumped his student, almost inhuman were it not for his decades of training. It was only then that Mirio was caught off guard, his punch missing its mark as the kick struck his chin and sent him flying a few feet away. When he fell, Tagata wasn't able to use his quirk on time as his back struck hard onto the concrete floor. The strike left him a bit dizzy as he gripped his head to stop it from spinning. "I wasn't fast enough," was the thought he had as Night Eye soon tossed his pants onto his crotch to cover his exposed privates. "You did better," but realize that your speed isn't the true key to your strength, it's your ability to defend while attacking. He lectured with much less disappointment than before. The boy's ability to avoid so many attacks without his quirk was impressive, and the movements he displayed were admirable, but his own ability to see the attacks coming only highlighted the mistakes that were made. Still, it's better than before, he admitted as the boy rose to his feet yet again. Though he still gripped his head in pain, he chuckled lightheartedly as he put on his pants. But you gotta admit, I'm getting better. He smiled, not allowing Night Eye's scathing negativity from before to wear him down. Mirio knew where he was going wrong. Hell, he's far harsher on himself than Night Eye is. Yet he knew that he still had lots of room to grow. Even if he struggled, he was confident that he could grow under Night Eye's direction. Seeing his attitude, Sir Night Eye only smirked. Even with the hell that he's put the boy through and the hell he has yet to endure, he's able to face it all with a smile and good spirits. Much like All Might. That's true, you're doing far better than before, he admitted rather reluctantly. There were still at least a few more months of training before classes start, but in that time Mirai Sasaki was intent on pushing the boy past his limits and into the future that he not only expected, but hoped for more than anything. With newfound determination, the three boys continued their training through the summer months, growing even stronger until they were finally recognized by both themselves and others around them. Flash forward, months passed like water for many, especially for a boy like Bakugo whose relentless and constant training led him to live out the same day over and over again. Compared to others, his training was much more improvised, having the basics like cardio, push-ups and sit-ups, but also mixing in other forms like carrying a refrigerator a couple of feet, lifting copious amounts of trash from everywhere and, his favorite part, blowing up junk for the sake of it. For months Katsuki ran straight into the abandoned beach and played around with the mountains of trash, cleaning it as part of his training. It wasn't for any real goodwill or moral standpoint that he cleaned the beach, but instead it was so that he could train his quirk more without getting fined or worse, going to jail. He was indeed able to grow his body and his quirk, but not to the degrees that he expected or wanted. As of yet he's learned how to concentrate the blasts of his attacks into more precise ones, but he still doesn't have the hang of it. Quote, exclamation mark, quote. He cursed himself, fully aware of his own shortcomings in growth. This'll have to do for now. He looked around his surroundings to see the semi-clean beach around him. While it wasn't as massively dirty and trashy as before, there was still a sizable amount of trash around him, either in small, untraceable pieces or large metal, general objects that even he wasn't able to lift, though he damn will try in the future. Around him he saw what was the physical proof of his growth, a tattered ruin that was left so because of his sheer determination. He was able to remove what was likely years of neglect to the beach by cutting the subsection of trash into a small, ruined wasteland full of dead appliances, shrapnel and scrap metal. Yet it wasn't gone entirely. And that's what irked him the most. To see that he wasn't able to grow fast enough or strong enough to wipe the beach clean only ever upset him, like the world was mocking him. Suddenly pissed off, the boy walked towards a large, dense metal box and angrily blasted it apart with a bombardment of his quirk, shrapnel flinging every which way. In a minute or two the dense metal box was instead a bundle of scrap. As he huffed a little he heard his phone ring in his pocket, forcing him to answer the call. "Who's this? Where the hell are you?" His mother yelled at him so loudly that he could feel his ear sting. "Don't yell at me, bitch," he responded instinctively, but was met with equal hostility. "Well then get your sorry ass over here, the tryouts start in an hour," she finalized before she abruptly hung up on him. "Off," he exclaimed angrily, though when looking at his phone he realized that it was surprisingly late by now. "Guess I'll cut it short today," he thought as he looked out to the semi-clean beachside. It was through his efforts alone that the place has been looking better, and it would be through his continued efforts that the place looked perfect, free from the garbage. Because very soon he'd find the strength to clear the beachside out. And afterwards, he'd move on to bigger things. Though now he cleaned the beach, soon he'll clean out the entire competition. Quickly he went back to jogging out of the beach, sending his mother his current location through text messaging. It wasn't much of a distance, only a few miles out from the more abandoned side of town. She'll make it to him easily. In the sidelines, a tired blonde man wearing a blue, yellow and red tracksuit bore a wide grin as he stared at the young boy leave the area. It was none other than Toshinori Yagi, who secretly kept track of the progress the kid was making, slowly observing over the course of the past week how much the beach has been cleaned out. Looks like that kid used this place as his training grounds, he noted to himself. Crafty. I'm guessing he's heading out to attend the UA tryouts. I'm sure I'll see him again. Crap, I'm gonna be late, he realized as he continued jogging in the same direction. In the months that Mirio had spent to train both his body and his mind, he made astonishing progress in both fields. With strict tutelage from the former sidekick of the legendary hero, the teenager was able to learn much more about what it was like to be All Might, always cheerful and calm along with powerful. He was even taken to certain hero missions throughout the summer break, and by the end he'd spent his entire vacation working, training and learning. And when there were only a few weeks until school started all over again, he was called into the same old training room for one final test, an overview of his newly acquired skills. He donned his hero suit yet again, a skin-tight suit with a cape that made him look more like a comic book superhero than anything. His outfit consisted of a bright white, long-sleeved shirt with the number 1,000,000 embedded into it. There was a maroon-red cape attached to it that matched his maroon-red gloves, and he wore a blue set of pants that was mostly covered up by thigh-high boots in the color white. Lastly, he wore a mask with a transparent yellow covering that both protected his eyesight. Due to the nature of his quirk, the entire outfit was also made from fibers of his hair in order to prevent him from losing his cloths mid-fight, saving him from much embarrassment. What's taking Sir so long? He should have been here by now, he wondered, checking his phone to see the time. It wasn't until a few minutes later that Sir Night-Eye entered the room, but leaving the door open behind him. I'm glad you were able to arrive on such short notice. It's a bit unexpected that I summon you in your free time, but this is important. He apologized. It's all right, 'cause I'm sure you saw it coming anyway. Mirio joked, as bad as the joke was. The point is, he cut to the chase, today I have a special guest here, one that's been eyeing you for some time now. He's seen your growth and asked to meet you today for an evaluation of sorts. Just then a tall, buff figure entered the room, shocking Mirio to his core. Hulking his way towards him was none other than the esteemed All Might, #1 hero and legendary defender of good. I'm here, he boasted proudly, standing directly in front of the impressionable young man. All Might, holy crap, you're here, Mirio exclaimed out of excitement and shock. In working under All Might's former sidekick, he never expected to actually see the legend in person. It was like meeting a fictional hero in real life. My, so you must be the young Tagata. I'm glad to see you've grown a lot. Just look at those muscles, he exclaimed proudly, placing a hand on the boy's extremely well-defined shoulder. Compared to his former, somewhat modest build, his body had undergone a drastic transformation, gaining more definition than before. Thanks, I'm so glad you noticed. I just can't believe it, you're here. That I am. All Might has been keeping a close eye on you, since you're not only sporting a noble goal, but because you're already growing to become a professional hero. In fact, if you weren't still in school, you'd be better than most pros nowadays. Really, I know I got strong, but that much stronger really? He asked himself. And since you've gotten so strong, how about a quick spar? A spar, that's right, not that it should be too hard for you, with that power and all. All Might smiled confidently, like he wasn't already anyway. Take on All Might alone? That's crazy, Mirio thought. Even if I can phase through his punches, how am I gonna deal any sort of damage to him? With the amount of power that All Might had, Mirio was far from intimidated, he was horrified by the thought. Someone like him couldn't stand up to All Might even if he didn't try, he was too tough and strong. In no time at all he'll lose with just one punch. Then again, that's only if he hits me. He tried to rationalize. Maybe he could hold his breath for long enough to outlast All Might, if only a little bit. Even then I can't back down now, I have to prove myself this time. Show both Sir and All Might what I'm made of. Okay, I'm ready then, he eventually smirked, raising his fists against the walking tank of a man. That's the spirit, here I go. In the blink of an eye, All Might was already jumping after the boy with such speed that he left a deep imprint on the concrete. Instinctively Mirio used his quirk to avoid the attack, watching as All Might missed his grand slam and instead vault against the wall he was headed towards. In the span of 2 seconds All Might sent himself flying from one wall to the next, attempting to land 2 devastating punches but missing as Tagata sunk to the floor. His reaction speed is impressive, already capable of avoiding my attacks. He observed as soon Mirio popped from the ground. My turn, he yelled, charging straight after All Might with his right fist cocked back. Easily All Might held out his arm to effortlessly block the attack, but to his surprise the fist went through his hand and at his face, landing a powerful punch that made All Might to reel his head back a little. So he's finally trained well enough to pull stunts like that. This'll be much harder than I thought. Feeling a bit more cocky, Mirio sent out a barrage of high-speed punches at All Might's chest, none of which did remotely any damage but were at least chipping away very slowly. In the middle of the assault All Might attempted to swing for an attack, but he was unable to hit Mirio as he activated his quirk in certain places to avoid the attack altogether. For a small while the two were at a stalemate, one landing every hit but not affecting the other so much, and the other unable to land a single attack. I can't hold my breath for that long, Mirio thought to himself as he continued the string of attacks, feeling as a greater barrage of punches passed through him unfazed. If at any point he received one of those attacks then he wasn't going to last a second. Each and every one that passed through him had the swiftness of a speeding car and most likely had the force of one too. Eventually Mirio disengaged by sinking into the floor again, and without a proper counter All Might could only wait for the boy to pop up again. In that instant he flew back into the room to land a mean uppercut to the chin, forcing All Might's head to jolt backwards. He followed this with a string of 2 attacks, twisting in the air to deliver a sweeping kick to the jaw and a right hook to the face, both of which only did minor damage to All Might. As Mirio fell through the floor again and tried the same attack he was surprised to see that All Might was missing, nowhere to be seen. Yet that was only a trick as a strong gust of wind struck his back, launching him headfirst into the wall. You can phase through anything so long as you're concentrated, but sometimes you're unable to breathe as a result. All Might reiterated what he read about Mirio's quirk. So in the moments that you need to recuperate you're completely open to any attack. Guess he already found out, Mirio thought, getting to his feet and only smiling painfully. You got me, but that doesn't mean it's over, he boasted confidently. In response All Might held out his arm and flicked 2 of his fingers, creating a strong gust of wind that knocked Mirio out of balance and allowing All Might to rush after the boy yet again. As the hero attempted yet another rush-down style attack the teen sunk into the ground yet again, popping up a few feet behind the man. But surprisingly All Might followed the same attack pattern again, flicking 2 fingers and jumping after the off-guard Tagata but disappearing again. He's not letting me catch my breath. The second I try to he knocks the air out of me in attacks. It's no wonder he's the #1 hero, he observed in a state of panic. Unbeknownst to All Might and Sir Night-Eye, Mirio was enveloped in a pitch-black darkness that covered his eyesight. The air inside of his lungs was nearly gone and he was unable to breathe, giving him the sensation akin to dying while buried alive. He could feel the horrifying sense of falling that came with using his quirk, and yet as he moved his body he was thrown deeper into the depths of the earth at a faster and faster pace. But instead he pushed through, forcing the fear out of him for only a few moments as he made up a strategy in his panic. By this point the second he deactivated his quirk he'd be unable to permeate through the following attack. Unless, I gotta try something at least, he finalized, the lack of air finally forcing his brain into action. Through his own will he could only hold back the fear inside of him for a few seconds, but the sensations and lack thereof were so detrimental that he found it hard to ignore it. Soon he found himself being flung back into the room at high speeds, due to the amount of time he spent falling now being launched in an instant like a trampoline. He easily collided with the roof, flipping in the air, landing on his feet and using the roof as a springboard to jump down at the symbol of peace for a desperate last attack. Instead, All Might quickly grabbed Mirio by the chest and slammed him violently into the ground, preventing him from breathing for just long enough that it felt like his heart was going to explode. The teen finally gasped a pained breath into his hurt lungs, feeling the pain surround his back. He knew that he had to move out of the way. But in his current state his heart couldn't keep up with the breakneck fighting pace they were going at. He actually dreaded the use of his quirk again, huffing for air yet unable to stand from the floor. Instead the boy gripped at his thumping chest. You did well, but your strategy couldn't compensate for the gap in power. All Might approached, looming over the defeated Tagata. His pained body couldn't match the agony his heart felt for nearly exploding with the lack of oxygen, leaving the teenager with a panicked expression that sort of surprised All Might. Thanks, was all he could muster, taking deep breaths to both calm down and absorb more air. All Might kneeled beside the young boy and stared deep into his eyes, only able to guess what's going on. If he's unable to breathe while using his quirk, then the deprivation of oxygen can put a great strain on his heart. All Might observed. And yet despite the horror that came with choking himself to near death, the young Tagata was still able to formulate a last-ditch effort of an attack. Even while laying on the floor he wore a meek smile covered by weak chuckling. And he still wears that smile. He observed as well, laughing proudly at the boy. So young yet already so daring, mirroring himself in more than one way. Guess he really didn't make a mistake after all in choosing a new student. It seems you've been able to prove yourself to me. Even when facing an opponent 10 times your strength you faced me head on without hesitation. For that I can truly call you, my pupil. Hold on, pupil, you see, Sir Night-Eye explained from the sidelines, the reason for this assessment was for All Might himself to see what you've learned. That way, he'll be more inclined to teach you more about harrowing himself. Teach me, so that makes me, my star pupil is what? All Might exclaimed rather proudly, almost yelling to the world what happened, declaring the new event with a daring sense of pride. It all felt so surreal to Mirio. He just became All Might's pupil. Is this secretly why Sir Night-Eye sought him out? Because he knew that he had the potential to get here. This can't be true. Am I really his pupil now? Hold on. Why are you doing this? It's so sudden that you'd find me now and to just start training me all of a sudden. Is something going on? He asked, making All Might chuckle. I'm glad you asked, because I'm here to make sure my legacy lives on. I want the new symbol of peace to carry on what I've created. And you, Lemillion, are just the aspiring young man to do it. That's because you have the conviction of a true hero, one that will uphold society as I have. You can save people by keeping the peace the same way I've done it, by giving hope to others and aspiring them to do great things. He exclaimed, outstretching his hand towards the boy. So, what do you say? Are you ready to accept your future? Mirio could only freeze for a second as he stared at the hand that reached out for him. He could feel an immediate wave of self-doubt plague his mind, holding him back from shaking that hand as his heart often did force him out of permeation. He wasn't anywhere near as strong or as popular as All Might was, and filling his enormous shoes was a gargantuan task in it of itself. He just doubted if he could ever reach that level of greatness to become the next symbol of peace. And yet his motivation kept him in check, not just his unstoppable need to do good but also to grow as strong as he could. It wasn't for the glory that he wanted to save 1,000,000 lives, to spend endless days practicing his quirk and confronting that everlasting nightmare every day. It was because he wanted to become his best self for others. Tamajiki, some members of his class, his father, they all looked up to him because he strove to be his best self, and in doing so he motivated others to do the same. And to be recognized by a man like All Might, the person he strove to be like every day, even going as far as taking lessons from his former sidekick, it was all just too much. With a small tear running down his eye and a wide smile, Mirio shook the hand of All Might himself. In the sidelines, Sir Night-Eye hid a sly smile from the other two, elated by his own efforts in growing Mirio as well as witnessing the true passing of a new torch. Here's to a grand future. Much like Mirio, Izuku too made lots of progress on himself. Through the hard work of Kurogiri and himself his body was much tougher than before, sporting a set of soft abs that, although not much, were still a great accomplishment for the young kid. And though there was still plenty of work to be done, this was the moment that Izuku had been waiting for. The day he would be truly initiated. One morning Izuku awoke and began the exact same schedule he always followed. He jumped out of bed, ate his breakfast, donned his light green tracksuit and made his way out the apartment for jogging. Thus he made his way to the hideout for the League of Villains. But when he arrived, instead of seeing the usual warehouse with gym equipment, he was at the bar. Before him stood All for One and Tamura, who wasn't gaming for a change. "Oh, sensei." Midoriya bowed respectfully. "I'm glad to see you again. Did something happen?" "Nothing to worry yourself with, my student. Only, I have a special offer for you, Izuku." All for One cut straight to the point. Beside him Tamura was actually fully attentive, a scary change that told Izuku there was something important going on. Something he wasn't aware of. "As you may already know, your high school days are fast approaching, meaning that your training time will be cut short for a change." All for One stated. "But that also means that the UA tryouts are occurring today, and soon after the School for Heroes will resume operations again. Of course, Bakugo is definitely going to ace the exams, and get into UA like he always dreamed." Izuku thought, clenching his fist a little. Even though he wasn't going to try out himself, not after what happened with his turn to villainy, the nervousness that came with the fast approaching day hit him as well. It was like unconsciously he was still holding out hope that he'd go to UA, and though he tried his best to ignore it, he could feel the last of his hope of becoming a hero die inside. "Because so it's only fitting that you two prove yourself to our cause," he said, surprising Izuku. "After all, there's a specific reason why I've had Kurogiri train you so heavily for these past few months. It's because I'm going to distribute the ultimate test. Pass it and your position as my proper pupil will be cemented. Fail it and you may very well die." Die? He asked himself. What kind of test was he going to give out? In his shocked state of being he saw Tamura give a sly smile. It was near unnoticeable really, but as he lifted his head up Izuku could see the smile that he hid, like he was glad to see a pest go away. It was that face that horrified Izuku even more. "Of course, should you refuse the test you'll simply be sent back home. You'll hear nothing from me and you'll get to live out the rest of your days as an ordinary boy." All for One stated. "The choice is yours, and I hope you'll make the correct decision." The green-haired boy froze in place, shocked by his current position. His options were either walking away for good, or dying, and neither of them were great. On the one hand, he'd get to properly walk away from his crazy situation. It was just his luck that things were so tame as of now, but with the coming school year his sensei implied that things were greatly going to change, maybe even get a little more hectic from here. If that was the case, then now was his only time to walk away, to escape from becoming the bane of society. But to run away now, after all the effort that he's put in as of late, it seems so stupid that he give up now. Even if what he was doing might sound redundant for a boy like himself, a fan of All Might training under his greatest enemy, it was his future that he was most worried about. "I'm confident that a boy like you can change a life, not like a hero, but as yourself. So please, don't stop helping other people, be your own hero. Through this portal there is a man who's waiting to see you. Take it and you'll find the strength to become something more, to achieve your dream. Leave it, and you'll abandon that dream you hold so dear forever." Quote. "You can save people by being yourself, by helping other villains endure the struggle that goes with being outcasts. You can save people from the society that we live in." To this day those words from the people around him continued to ring, promises that helped maintain his sanity through the strange jump in logic he thought this was. As a villain, there had to be a way to make things better for everyone, to change the very core of society for those that were left out. Be it that burned man who suffered through the hands of heroes, himself who was isolated from society for having a dream, or others who couldn't rise from the oppression as he had and instead were destroyed along the way. There had to be a way to save them all. It's not bad to dream. But sometimes, you just have to be more realistic. It doesn't matter if what I dream is realistic or not. Izuku swatted away the demeaning words of All Might himself. What matters, is that I live up to those dreams. And if I can't be a hero, then I'll have to be a villain to see those dreams through. With a new conviction and confidence the boy stood straight, holding his clenched fist in front of him as he stared directly at All for One. His body still shook as he processed the thought of dying for nothing, of becoming a mere thought in people's minds, in leaving his mom alone. To Tamura's displeasure and all for one's joy, they saw the boy staring down the face of death itself with the confidence to take him on. If only he knew what he was getting himself into. Hey, I'm proud of you, Midoriya. With little warning, all for one's right arm grew a little, almost puffing up in size. The symbol of evil cocked back his fist. Then your test begins now. Suddenly the man punched the air in front of him with his supercharged fist, launching a powerful gust of wind straight to the young boy's chest. In the blink of an eye, the wind crashed into Izuku with the force of a truck, bashing him violently against the wall and forcing him to his knees out of sheer pain. In mere second his body was enveloped in a white-hot flame that was the pain of his crushed chest. He coughed up a slew of blood as he held himself just above the ground, clenching his broken ribs and possibly punctured intestines. Your objective is to stand up before me, all for one stated as he trudged towards the dying kid. The ringing in his ears, the drooling blood falling from his mouth, the darkening of his vision, all of which Izuku had to manage with as he struggled to even stay in place without falling. His breath was labored and pained, a horrible sign to be sure, and his consciousness was quickly fading away. Had he taken an attack like this earlier at any point, he surely would have died, but with his trained muscles and his toughened body he was left clinging between life and death. I can't move. He panicked, trying desperately to move a muscle, but every inch of his body was locked tight. You know, Midoriya, I'm very aware of how much you idolize All Might. All for one began, scaring Izuku further. You and millions of others adore him for the strength he possesses to carry the world on his shoulder. In fact, I too admire his strength. He knows. But there's a very specific reason why I've sought you out. It wasn't just the notebooks that you've made for me, those can very easily be replicated by my associates. He stated, frightening the boy as he loomed over him. It's the fire that burns brightly within you that interests me. The potential that you have to change society into your image, the ability to continue dreaming when those around you snuff out every hope you have. You survived it all. And yet, as you lay here broken and defeated, you continue to fight with every breath that you draw. You channel your very being into living what would have killed anyone else. All for one monologue. So now I give you a task best suited for a dreamer like yourself. I ask that you stand up and face me. I ask that you push through all of the pain life has thrown your way, to push past those that doubt you to this day and meet your future head on. I demand that you take action into your own hands and take your place beside me. Because you're one of very few whose dreams remain untouched by the crushing force of society, who continues to fight for what they believe in. In what has to be the pinnacle of his motivational speech, All for One held his hands up to the sky, almost yelling out to the world and to Izuku, commanding both to heed his word. Take your place, Izuku Midoriya, and reach your future. The agonizing body of Izuku could barely hear any word that All for One was saying, yet he spoke with such clarity, such confidence and arrogance that Izuku understood every word and took it all to heart. His body vibrated with such pain that it was almost mind-numbing, almost. Sensei believes in me, he can see me for who I am. Izuku thought happily, crying tears of both excruciating pain and mild joy as a smile forcefully pulled at his lips. This was the first time that anyone believed him with such intensity, to declare to the world that he was going to change it. It was breathtaking. Whether through force, adrenaline or sheer will, Izuku took back a shaky control of his body, his every muscle and bone screaming at him to stop. Yet he didn't listen to any of it. Instead, he weakly pushed himself up, slowly sitting up to his knees as the effort forced more blood out of his mouth. To Tamura's dismay, he watched the near teenage boy slowly get up to his knees and make his way off the ground, his legs buckling as his body refused to cooperate. Yet he continued, getting to his feet and soon attempting to stand. With an amazing tenacity, All for One witnessed the dying Midoriya rise to his full height as he stared him down with leaking eyes and a shaky smile. In what felt like an eternity, the boy was able to take a killing blow and stand up straight, staring at All for One with an unmatched bravery. I accept, he stated before he lost his breath, the effort and pain finally overtaking his sheer will as he lost all sense of his body. Midoriya fell to his back, the darkness growing more as the spots in his vision became more frequent. The great All for One loomed over the green-haired kid, chuckling proudly as he observed. He was exactly like his brother, down to a T. You pass. he said as he kneeled over the boy and placed a hand on his head. Your loyalty is evident, and as such I see it fit that I bestow upon you a quirk. His hand began glowing a bright red as Izuku's hair shifted in place, an electric feeling running through his body. I grant you the ability to endure everything that's thrown your way, the ability to live through anything that which may kill any other. I grant you the quirk known as Survivor. With the fading light leaving both of their bodies, Izuku finally passed out from the pain, yet miraculously he continued to breathe a labored breath, defying death itself as he slumbered. Kurogiri, see to it he recovers. All for one ordered, and without a word both Izuku and the living shadow disappeared from the room. That was disappointing. Tamura piped up. I thought I'd be able to kill him. Prior to Izuku's appearance, all for one ordered Tamura to witness the event unfold before them. Without the boy knowing, they agreed on one thing. Should Midoriya decline the offer and attempt to escape their grasp, Tamura himself would see to it that the brat disappeared. The young man was really looking forward to it too, and he more than hoped that the test would kill him instantly. Yet he saw as the kid defied his own body and faced his master before passing out. Watch your tone, Tamura, for now he's a vital asset to my plans. And he'll be your ally as well. Reluctantly he held his tongue, yet his next words were out of genuine curiosity. And what quirk did you give him? Can he really survive that attack? It's simple really, the man said as he rose to his feet, hiding a sinister smile behind his mask, giddy that his plans went so smoothly for the first time in a while. Truly he had to pat himself on the back for that one. From now on, what doesn't kill him can only make him stronger. It was early in the morning when Izuku's alarm awoke him for his first day of high school, a new experience that was fundamentally different from middle school. He jumped out of bed and scoured his closet for his uniform, hurriedly wearing the basic black shirt with black pants. He still wore his red shoes, and a white undershirt as well, making him eerily similar to his normal middle school self. I guess some things don't change at all. Midoriya wondered to himself as he picked up his backpack and was set to leave when he was stopped by a poster on the wall. He stared intensely at the bright and shiny poster of All Might. Lingering feelings for the number one hero still remained inside of him. All of his life he looked up to the man for his strength and determination to help others at no cost to himself. He truly was the hero to bring back the age of heroes, giving Japan and the world around a golden era of peace. And yet when he looked at the poster he no longer saw it with rose-tinted glasses anymore. Matter of fact, he looked around his whole room to see that it had the overpowering image of All Might stapled everywhere, his desktop, shelves, wall, and there were even stands too. He remembered how only months ago he saw All Might as the greatest man to ever live. Hell, he even watched the video that marked his debut daily, and still does. But in looking at his walls lined with All Might merchandise he couldn't help but think back to his meeting with him in secret. How the symbol of peace deflated before him and revealed the true cost of being a hero. He was so skinny and frail just like himself, yet outwardly he played the part as society's protector. To think that he was hiding such a secret was shattering. And now, after all this time, he still held a faint amount of respect for him. It was no longer because of his strength, nor the childlike glee that he still clung to, but his ideals, the concept of the man. Just like Sensei said, he was so strong that he was able to hold up society over his shoulders and bring an era of peace, to save others through the kindness of his heart. He was still a model hero, regardless of the fact that he was the last person to crush Izuku's dreams. Even then Izuku couldn't bring himself to hate him, he could only understand his reasoning. But that's not enough, I guess, he thought as he faced the large, overbearing poster of the smiling man. Regardless of the effect he had on crime, regardless of the fact that he was such a popular role model, and regardless of Izuku's admiration, there was still so much evil underlining the good. In a world full of heroes there was still so much that was left under the cracks, affecting people like him on a daily basis. I can't play both sides like this, and for that I'll have to put this down, he thought sadly as he removed the tape and stared at the poster. He couldn't bring himself to hang the poster admirably anymore. His feelings of respect were still intact, but in displaying the poster proudly he felt dirty, like a poser. With his now cemented allegiance with All for One, he couldn't just boast about becoming a hero anymore, not when he was actively going against them. Midoriya sighed deeply to himself, rolling up the poster and hiding it in his closet. He didn't have the heart to throw it away or burn it, but he didn't have the heart to place it anymore. He looked around and saw the rest of the action figures and smaller posters around his room too. I'll have to put those up later, he thought as he exited his room with a small hole in his chest. His new path was murky and confusing, knowing that he had to burn his allegiance to heroes, but his inner child wanted to be one even now. It was the whole reason why he fought to become a villain. And maybe, after all was said and done, he can rest knowing that he gained the strength to make his dreams come true. Elsewhere, in the esteemed School of Heroes, a wave of high school students made their way inside. While some of the more starry-eyed freshmen took a moment to admire the beauty, the more seasoned students didn't hesitate to enter campus with fresh new mindsets and capabilities they've acquired over the summer. Case in point, Mirio Tagata waded his way through, spotting both familiar and unfamiliar students and friends alike. Some of which were newer friends, others were just friendly mutuals. But only one was truly glad to see him. "Mirio, you're here," said Imajiki from just behind Mirio, catching his attention. "Hey Tamaki, you made it." "Yeah," he agreed, looking out towards the crowd that surrounded them, so obnoxious and loud. "Really don't like being this early, especially on the first day of school," he commented to himself, feeling his heart retreat deep into his body, yet he was physically unable to do so. "Don't sweat it Tamaki, it's our third year after all. You can't hide in your shell forever," Mirio encouraged as he patted his friend's back caringly. "That's right. But there are so many strange faces, and there are so many expectations to meet. I wanna go home." He shook in place, feeling pressured by his soon-to-be future. Strangely enough, Imajiki was one of the top members of their class based primarily on potential and power. If it weren't for his incredible lack of confidence, he'd be the star student. However, while he does show his level of skill from time to time, it's very easy to knock down his confidence. "Oh hey you two, long time no see." Turning around, the two boys saw the approaching star student of the class, Najire Hato. She wore the standard female uniform of the white dress shirt and a navy blue skirt with a gray vest and basic brown shoes. But what made her different was her sky blue hair that fell down to her knees with two split ends that almost wrapped around her legs, as well as her sky blue eyes. Though she was pretty and elegant in more than one way, earning her the title of class sweetheart, she was unique in that she also doubled as one of the big two students in UA that held so much power that they were practically pro-heroes. The second of the two was none other than Tamaki Imajiki. Though the blonde boy gave Najire a grin and a wave, Tamaki only shot her a murderous glare that would normally have intimidated anyone else, if it weren't for the fact that the girl knew him well enough by now. "Hey stop that Tamaki, you're glaring again." She shook it off as the boy lowered his head. "Sorry, it's hard to control it," he apologized. Contrary to his introverted nature, his eyes had always been small and sharp, often giving people the wrong impression of him. "You two are pretty early." She moved on. "Say, anything fun happen over the break for you guys?" "Huh," she winked and nudged rather unsubtly. "What do you mean by that?" Mirio gave her a wide, proud grin. He also knew Najire well enough to know that she knew something. "Well, I'm talking about your work studies." "How did you know about that?" they asked, already knowing the answer regardless. "I heard from a friend, who heard from their friend, that they saw you frequently visiting the Night Eye Agency." She pointed. "So, what happened?" "Oh, nothing much," Mirio teased. "But if you want to know, let's just say that the Big Two will soon become the Big Three." He boasted proudly, confident in his current standing whilst not giving away much. "Ooh, ominous." She smiled before quickly moving on to the next subject. "Did you guys hear? All Might's gonna be a teacher at the school. Isn't that so crazy?" "Yeah, pretty insane," Tamaki commented. "Apparently he'll teach the foundational hero work and some of the more advanced work too, including us." "Isn't that great? We get to meet All Might in person." "Of course," Mirio stated, though inwardly he chuckled to himself. "According to Sir, he was only supposed to teach the first years if it wasn't for me." He thought to himself, giddy at the chance to work with All Might both in and out of school. And like that the bell rang, allowing a sea of teenagers to enter the building and walk to their classes. "Well, it was nice talking with you too. I can't wait to work with the both of you," Najire exclaimed as she forced her way inside, soon followed by the other two. "Yeah, this year'll be game-changing," the blonde boy thought to himself as he pushed his way inside as well, towards his new future. In the same school, another blonde teenager faced down his future head-on, staring down the door of his class labeled 1A. Sadly, he was a bit late because of his morning exercises plus his mother's shitty driving, but at least Bakugo didn't get yelled at too much. "This is it, huh? The next step," he thought, only taking a brief moment to himself as he looked on with what looked like indifference, but was actually a hidden nervousness. All of his life he dreamed about being in this very spot, and ever since he was young people kept reassuring him that it was all but confirmed. But to finally stand in front of his next step in life was just a little, if not partly, emotional. He's dreamed about going to UA, telling himself that he was destined to be here. And yet it was a bit hard to believe, if only because he didn't fully realize the extent to which his emotional whiplash would hit him. Still, he bore an indifferent glare that would have led anyone to believe he'd forgotten something. "I'm the only kid in my shitty town to get here," he noted, feeling a little bit akin to an underdog in such regards. "I'll show these losers what real power's like, made from pure willpower." Katsuki was so enveloped in his own thoughts, however, to notice a familiar girl walking up to him. A plain-looking girl wearing the standard uniform. She had short brown hair with brown eyes and noticeably pink cheeks. There wasn't much of anything striking about her appearance, which said more about her than anything. "Oh, hi there. Didn't think I'd run into you again," she said, catching his attention. Who are you?" "The name's Ochako Uraraka," she introduced herself with a bright, shining smile. "You're the guy that saved me back at the tryouts, aren't you? I'm so glad to see that you made it." "I've met her before," he asked himself, a bit puzzled by her friendliness. He didn't think much about the tryouts after they went down, only that he was able to mow down a sea of those robot dummies that were there for the point system. But now that she mentioned it, there was something that went down as well. Flashback. As the sweaty Katsuki used his quirk to blast another robot to bits, his body forced him to take a moment of rest. He'd been exerting himself in more than just his quirk. He's been running, punching and even lifting the robots himself as he encountered them, destroying all in his quest to place number 1 on the board. So far he hasn't had much of any trouble taking care of business. In fact, he's been picking off these robots like they were just piles of scrap, the same ones that he's been training with all summer. "Damn, I'm good. My training's paying off," he thought to himself, checking out his hands and seeing that they were a bit red and raw from the sheer amount of usage his quirk underwent. As he was distracted, there was a resonating boom that shook the ground and called for everyone's attention, making them look towards a dust cloud that was created by the explosion. Soon rising from the devastation and destruction was another dark green robot that stood several stories in height and featured 2 large, oversized arms that it used to grip the sides of the building as though it was unbalanced. The sheer presence of the robot gave Bakugo a slight fear before it was washed away by confusion. Where the hell did they get the money for that? The general reactions from the crowd were those of fear and regret, as many were unable to deal with such a massive threat like that. Not that they should anyway, because of all the robots that one wasn't worth any points, deeming it useless for people like Bakugo to take advantage of. "That thing looks tough as hell," he wondered out of surprise, closely observing it as it looked over him and several participants. "Its armor must be resistant to blasts like mine, and since it's not worth anything, there's nothing stopping me from just leaving it for other people to deal with." Just as Bakugo set to leave, the large robot slammed a fist into the ground in front of it, creating a large dust storm that immobilized everyone nearby as rubble and concrete flew every which way. As the dust settled, Bakugo was slow to recover from its effects, picking away dust from his eyes as the people around him were already running for their lives, and for good reason. "Guess there's no one here that can take on the damn thing. Not like anyone would, since it's just a distraction," he thought as he prepared to use his quirk to fly away. That was until he heard a stifled coughing followed by a panicked cry for help. It wasn't very audible amongst the other noise, but it was distinguishable enough from the screams of fear and panic that it caused Bakugo to turn around and face the source of the noise. A small distance from him there was a helpless brunette that laid on the floor, her leg buried under a large slab of concrete. She was seemingly immobilized before the robot as everyone else ran for their lives. The hell, he realized. She's just stuck there. As he contemplated on whether he should leave or not anyway, fate had a different opinion. Soon the towering robot rolled forward, either clueless to the young girl that was trapped under the rubble or intent on punishing her for being so helpless. Either or was not good. Does the damn bot even realize she's trapped there? If it moves too much it'll crush her. He realized, watching as the robot seemed to finally notice him with its big, shiny red eye. Inwardly he debated on if he should or shouldn't waste more time on the matter. The robot clearly noticed him by now, and the most effective play would be to blast to a different area and spend his last 2 minutes destroying more robots for a higher score. But as he stood there contemplating, it slowly dawned on him that the robot wasn't stopping anytime soon. It was actually headed towards him, oblivious to the girl that panicked more and more as she realized her predicament. To Bakugo's surprise, she touched the oversized slab of concrete with the tips of her fingers and used her powers to make the thing float in the air and fall harmlessly away from her. But also, to his ever-frustrating dilemma, she wasn't able to stand up, crawling on all fours away from the street. That piece of shit can't even get up on her own. Damn it, now I'm stuck here too. He realized as the robot got even closer to the two of them until it was just in front of the girl, scaring the daylights out of her as the robot cocked its arm back. Quote, exclamation mark, quote. The boy yelled as he used his quirk to fire straight after the girl in a last-ditch effort to save her. He propelled himself after her like a rocket and lifting her off the ground with both arms. In seconds the metallic arm came crashing down yet again, creating a gust of wind so powerful that it blew back the two teenagers and sent them flying from under the robot. In the middle of his flailing, Bakugo used one arm to blast the two of them into a building, crashing through the already broken windows of the empty complex and sending them stumbling inside. That was too close. Could have killed us. Katsuki groaned as he immediately recovered from the fall and looked outside to see that the robot continued on its way down the street. I wasted a whole 30 seconds on this shit. I'll get as much done as I can before time runs out. He declared as he blasted off again, leaving the girl coughing in pain. The brown-haired girl took a small while to recover, but in that time she could only think of the kind, spiky-haired boy that yanked her out of harm's way. Meanwhile, said spiky-haired boy flew through the sky like nothing important happened, forgetting the face he saved in a matter of minutes. Present. Oh, you're that helpless chick who nearly died to the 0-point robot. Bakugo spouted bluntly and harshly, making the girl inwardly upset. That's not wrong. Uraraka admitted to herself and only herself as she brushed aside the mean words. Well, I just wanted to thank you for saving me back there. If it weren't for you I probably wouldn't have made it out of there with just a broken ankle and a few bruises. She thanked from the bottom of her heart. In response, the boy only scoffed as he disregarded her thanks, seeing nothing of it. If anything, it was a bother to go through the trouble of wasting his time if she wasn't in any real danger. Though in the heat of the moment it did seem like she was. That's nothing to worry about, you were just too weak to deal with it yourself, so I had to step in and save you from getting plastered. He stated, shocking Uraraka. What, if you could have used that power of yours more effectively then you would have been fine anyway. No need to waste my time, he stated and without tact. Throughout his lifetime he's had to live off of the strength of his own power and determination. Any and every mistake he made was his fault alone. So, regardless of the fact that something compelled him to save her, the girl most likely had the power to escape the situation in the first place had she trained properly. It was much like his incident with the sludge villain, a scar on his back that he bore every day now it seems. If he'd trained his power to the fullest like he did now, then that ball of slime wouldn't have been able to lay a finger on him. Likewise, if the girl was able to use her rock-lifting abilities to the fullest, then a simple slab of concrete wouldn't have deterred her from escaping. It was only basic principle that he pointed out. Hell, he was nice enough to even talk to her like a normal person instead of the failure she was. That's so heartless. You don't really mean that, do you? She exclaimed, only pissing off the boy more. Listen bitch, if you're here to start shit then shut it. He berated. I don't care what you think, so if you're here to thank me then get out of the way. I don't need to hear it from someone who couldn't even move last time I checked. With that harsh line, Bakugo barged into the room by swinging the door open, alerting the class to the latest 2 additions to the class roster. Inside was a nearly full room of students, each one with varying appearances. But Katsuki didn't pay attention to any of them, only making his way to an open seat. That was until a boy with short, dark blue hair and glasses approached him. Good morning, he declared formally. I'm a student from Somei Private Academy. My name is Tenya Iida, welcome to Class 1A. He introduced politely, bowing respectfully as he did so. You're from a private school, The blonde wondered, looking the boy up and down. You don't look special, what's your deal? That's an incredibly rude thing to say. The boy stated, every student here is to be treated equally, not just based on appearance alone. Sure, just wait until I crush you to say that again. Katsuki mocked as he walked to his desk and sat down, putting his feet up on his desk to casually but firmly establish his dominance, but instead he only irritated the rest of the students. He can't be serious, can he? Crush. Iida was left flabbergasted along with the girl just outside of the door. Hurry up and take your seats, you're holding up the class. A voice said from behind them. Walking into the room came a tall man with tired eyes and dirty black hair. He wore all black boots, pants and a shirt along with a gray scarf that looked more like a bundle of oversized bandages. The man had an imposing presence on the class despite his tired, uncaring attitude or the yellow body bag that he carried beside him. As the last 2 students rushed to their seats, the man introduced himself. I'm your homeroom teacher, Shoto Aizawa. Nice to meet you, he stated, taking a lot of people aback as he tossed the bag onto his desk. Inside that are a bundle of uniforms. Put them on and head to the field for your initiative tests. Hold on, the kid with glasses interjected, we're missing a student, aren't we? And isn't there an induction ceremony we must attend? The ceremony's just for show, you don't need that to learn from my class. Aizawa stated rather pragmatically. As for the student count, 1, 5, 10, 17. Yep, that's all. Hold on, aren't there usually supposed to be 18? A kid with yellow hair stated. Only the best of the best are able to join this class, the limit being 18. He corrected the student. Be glad that you're even close to a full class this year, otherwise you'd all be filling out Class 2B. He stated as he made his way out the room, leaving the teens stunned by his words. Best of the best, huh? Bakugo smirked evilly, already getting his ego boosted so early into the school year. And with the attitude his teacher was employing, he'd fit in nicely. After a long first day of quirk assessments and competitions, the real test was just beginning. Yet after the scare of being expelled from the class, things weren't too bad for the teens of 1A. Bakugo, on the other hand, was exhilarated to be tested in such a way. He got the chance to flaunt his power to the other students and reveal the true source of his ego, but that only irritated the rest of the class further. Finally, as the school day was only halfway done, the students found themselves in one of many training grounds for the school. With some food in their stomachs and each wearing their special hero costumes, hope was running high. As All Might running late. Where is he? Doesn't my cape look marvelous? These were the primary questions asked as the students waited at the training grounds. Though Aizawa warned them ahead of time that All Might liked to run a bit late, it was still a bit disheartening for them as the students he was supposed to be teaching. Otherwise, Bakugo stood still and with his arms crossed, impatiently waiting for the great All Might as he got a better feel for his costume. The costume in question had the overall design of a grenade, featuring 2 oversized, green gauntlets that had the exact design of one. He wore black combat boots, thick black pants with gray knee pads, as well as a black tank top with an orange cross, X, design on it. He wore a black and orange domino mask that covered his eyes and shot out from the side of his head like a spiky explosion. The entire costume was based on his crappy drawing that he submitted to the hero support group, and strangely enough it was exactly as he imagined it. TCH, I really am wearing this thing, huh? It's so powerful, he boasted, feeling the heavy leather and metal press against his skin like he were a military soldier, or better yet an explosive armament. But two of the more important details in his costume were the actual grenades that he kept strapped to his belt and the large metal gauntlets he wore. As for the grenades, they were supposed to be stored with his own sweat to create a more powerful yet shrapnel-less explosive that could easily incapacitate villains, but for the moment they were empty. His gauntlets on the other hand weren't just for show, as a small heating mechanism slowly burned his arms and created sweat for the gauntlets to store. Both of these additions stemmed from his creative mind and from what he's learned during his training throughout the summer. The storing of his sweat was an idea he formed not too long ago, and yet he felt so proud of himself for putting it to use. Already he could hear the sloshing from inside his gauntlets. There's still a lot I'm missing, and I'm sure as hell gonna work to become the biggest and best hero around. He smirked as he grasped his thick gauntlet. Suddenly, there was a huge boom that came from high in the sky, followed by a loud crash that came from just in front of them, as well as a large amount of dust that was kicked up. The event took everyone aback, but as the dust settled, everyone was elated to see the man who appeared from thin air. "I am here, fashionably late," All Might boasted, posing as the other students gawked at his appearance. Even Bakugo was taken aback. He wore his old costume with the red torso and navy blue cape, an old but gold costume that the teens seemed to appreciate greatly. "It's really All Might," they said, gasping as they stared with awe. "He's here," Bakugo thought with amazement. "I apologize for being late, I was busy doing my morning hero work." He apologized, though the students didn't seem to care too much, each fanboying in different degrees and in their own ways. Katsuki, meanwhile, was temporarily starstruck by the legendary hero. All of his admiration and fanboying accumulated into a visible gasp that lasted more than a few moments, something that he never took the time to do when he was rescued by the sludge villain. He remembered as a child watching the TV, reading comics and hearing all about the #1 hero, often along with the biggest fan he knew, Deku. For a split second he considered the pathetic boy and wondered how he would react to seeing his favorite hero standing in front of him. It would have been mind-shattering for him, if only he were here to witness it. But immediately after the thought was made, his visible gasp disappeared and was replaced by a scornful stare, and then into a cocky grin. He shamed himself for thinking of that random loser when the spotlight was on him, not Deku. He was the one who got to meet his hero up close, and in the same breath it would be he who toppled the myth and become the new #1. Just as everyone thought he would. "Mr. Aizawa brought you here because I'm here to test you. In a world as peaceful as ours, evil yet lurks in the shadows, appearing every so often to threaten the peace. And as such I must train you all into becoming the next generation of peacekeepers." All Might said, his speech resonating deeply with every student around, though primarily because it came from him of all people. "That is why today you'll be facing each other in combat. 2 teams of 2 will strategically battle for the possession of a nuclear warhead." He began before finally facing the class seriously. "Are you ready to face your challenge?" "Yes, sir." Team A: Ochako Uraraka, Mina Ishido. Team B: Denki Kaminari, Minoru Mineta. Team C: Koji Koda, Rikido Sato. Team D: Katsuki Bakugo, Eijiro Kirishima. Team E: Kyoka Jiro, Momo Yaoyorozu. Team F: Toru Hagakuri, Yuga Aoyama. Team G: Mezzo Shoji, Honta Siro. Team H: Fumikage Tokiyami, Tenya Iida. Team I: Tsuyu Asui, Mashirao Ojiro. Team J: Shoto Todoroki. With the teams drawn and the matches set, the class began their tests, each with differing winners and losers. The first of the set of battles was Team A versus Team E, with the former playing as the villains. While the first hid their bomb within a building and protected it from the heroes, the second team received in-depth schematics of the building they were going to be fighting inside. As the two villains waited for the action to occur, Ochako thought nervously. She wore a dark green and light pink bodysuit that was skin-tight. It featured roundly shaped pink boots, rounded pink gauntlets and a helmet that had a large, clear protective covering. Overall it was a little too erotic for her tastes, but nothing too uncomfortable. "You were just too weak to deal with it yourself, so I had to step in and save you from getting plastered." "Was I really too weak to help myself?" She asked herself, thinking back to what that boy said. As much of a jerk he was, she couldn't deny his reasoning behind his motives. After all, she really was too weak to stand up, and that might have gotten her killed. But to go as far as to call saving her a waste of time was just cruel. Yet the demeaning words still stuck to her, making her question her own abilities. If she, a wannabe hero, needed to be saved by someone else, then what good was she? In fact, in terms of being a part of Class 1A, she only barely passed with her point score. It was like he was restating an insecurity that she had herself, not feeling good enough to even be a part of the class or even the school. But interrupting her train of thought was Mina Ashido, the girl who stood just beside her doing stretches. She had unruly light pink hair and light pink skin, along with black eyes and yellow pupils. She had 2 small beige horns within her hair, making her look very alien-like as a result. Her hero outfit wasn't much different, featuring a teal and purple bodysuit along with brown and beige boots and a beige jacket with white fluff. To top it all off, she also had a white domino mask that did nothing to mask her identity. Overall, her aesthetic was more or less that of a strange alien, amplifying her basic appearance. "Hey, Uraraka, you nervous too?" she asked, noticing that she stood still for quite some time. "Oh yeah, I'm kinda worried about my school year." She voiced her concerns. "It's only my first day and yet there are so many people with cool powers. It feels really scary that I'm even trying to compete with them." "Hey, don't sweat it, I feel the same way," she said, chuckling a little nervously. "Really? You do?" "Yeah, my power isn't that impressive compared to everyone else's. Like, yeah, I can shoot acid and all, but everyone else can make explosions, shoot ice from their body and even electricity. I'm kinda lame compared to them." "Hey, that's not true," Uraraka retorted. "You're amazing with your power. Acid's pretty cool too." "Hee, thanks." Mina smiled. "Still. How do you cope with it? Feeling weak and helpless?" "Well, I tell myself that I still have a long way to go. The whole reason why we're in this class is because we're gonna become stronger, isn't it? If I feel down now, I just have to work harder to get stronger." She boasted confidently, both to convince Uraraka and herself with her statement. "I still have a long way to go." "Yeah, that's right, I do still have some growing to do," Ochako boasted, both relieved and motivated by the statement itself, but the lingering feeling remained. Just then 2 girls barged into the room, the heroes that they were supposed to be protecting the nuclear warhead from. The first of the 2 was Kyoka Jiro, a girl with short, dark purple hair and 2 long fleshy cables coming from her earlobes, each end having an aux connection. Her hero outfit was rather plain, yet stylish. She wore thick black boots with black pants and a stylish black jacket. She also had a torn peach shirt, fingerless gloves and a small choker to create a rocker aesthetic. "Found you," she smirked, an ear cable detaching from a nearby wall and returning to her. "Hey, not fair. It hasn't even been 5 minutes. Mina exclaimed. The second girl was Momo Yaoyorozu, who had long black hair that was held up by a ponytail and leaving a large tuft of hair as a bang, and she also had black-colored eyes. Her hero outfit was rather revealing, but given her quirk it was partially understandable. She wore red knee-high boots with a red leotard that had a few silvery designs and an open boob window, as well as a beige mini-skirt with a book attached to the back of it. It was quite revealing for a costume, and it certainly got some glances from the boys, but to say it was ineffective was definitely wrong. "Jiro was able to track you with her quirk," she said, holding a silver buckle shield on one arm and a metal staff in the other. "With her cables she could hear your conversation throughout the building." "Darn it, now we have to fight so early too," Mina complained before clearing her throat, donning a sort of new character. "This is the end of the line, heroes. You'll meet your end here." Instantly Ochako burst out laughing, along with Jiro and even getting a chuckle from Momo. "Hey, take this seriously, we're supposed to be villains," Mina complained. "Right, it's just, you sounded so serious for a second. And that's not what a villain sounds like, does it?" "Of course," she shot back. "Villains are pure evil bent on destroying the world, aren't they? Why else would we have a nuke sitting here if not to use it to take over the world?" "She has a point," Jiro butted in, with Momo reluctantly nodding along with, "I guess I'll play along too." Ochako calmed down before making a rather strange pose, holding her arms over her head in the shape of an "Oh. This is it, heroes. No one can stop us now," she said with a malicious voice, making Mina smile. The other two girls gave each other a look before wordlessly charging after the villains to complete the test. And yet as they continued to play villain, the girls remained misinformed, sticking to beliefs they'd all had since childhood. Much later, after the conclusion of a few matches, came the match between Team D and Team H, with Bakugo and Kirishima as the villains. But once the timer began, the blonde already set out to find the heroes and capture them before they can get in his way. "Hey, hold on. Where you going?" the spiky red-haired boy exclaimed. His hero costume was quite practical as well, thick maroon red boots with thick black pants and a maroon waistcoat that was held by a black belt with a large belt buckle displaying the letter R on it. Otherwise he had two strange gear-like objects covering his shoulders and wore a thin mask that, rather than cover his face, only wrapped around it to create a sharp, jagged design. His costume was a bit strange looking, a jagged and sharp design that also went well with his quirk's equally sharp and jagged nature. "I'm off to capture them before they get here. You'll stay here in case they do," he ordered before walking out of the room, both baffling and impressing the redhead. "I'm sure as hell gonna take care of those two extras alone. I bet neither of them can handle me in a fight, especially if I catch them off guard," he planned as he made his way through the maze-like building structure, biding his time and waiting to encounter the other two. While it was tactically unwise to split off from his partner, he wasn't gonna give away the opportunity to flaunt his power, and given the situation at hand he was more than willing to do so. As he walked through the building he wondered about the boy from Team J, a lone boy who will soon have to fight two people alone. It's no coincidence that he's on his own. Maybe he's got some power that the teachers know about, he thought to himself. Although he was confident in his own right that he could situate himself as the undisputed best of the class, he also couldn't help but wonder just what the others were capable of. Eventually he found the two students he was looking for, strolling through the complex in search of the bomb. The first was Tenya Iida, wearing a full set of silver armor with exhaust ports at the calves and the hips, making him look like a speeding knight of sorts. The second was Fumikage Tokiyami, having a head in the shape of a crow with a large beak and red eyes. He wore a large robe that completely covered his torso and legs, only showing his black boots. Emanating from him was a large shadow creature with the vague shape of a crow, but it had large arms with sharp claws. The two simple-looking heroes walked around in search of their target, unaware that one of them was hiding around the corner. Yet as much as Bakugo thought about being stealthy, his ego got the better of him as he shouted for their attention. "Hey, looking for me?" The two turned around to face him, and when they did Iida began monologuing. "So it's finally you, evildoer. It was a big mistake to reveal yourself from your hiding place. Now we, the heroes of society, will take you down swiftly." "What are you doing?" Tokiyami asked curiously, but his quirk, Dark Shadow, joined in on the role-playing. "We'll pummel you so hard we'll send you crying," Dark Shadow boasted arrogantly. "Oh yeah, then I'll crush you." With that, Bakugo used his quirk to propel himself forward and attack Iida directly, launching after the teen with a flying right hook that was normally unreactable. Yet somehow, quick on his feet, the knight in shining armor backflipped using his propellers on his calves to add force to his counter-attack. The result was a clean kick that landed square on the blonde's chest, sending him into the roof. Following up was Dark Shadow, which flew up to the boy and pummeled him with an enlarged fist before grabbing him by the chest and slamming him into the ground. Yet Bakugo was able to hold up his hand and create a powerful explosion that sent back the shadow creature, giving him enough breathing room to pick himself off the ground. "Damn it, they're tougher than I thought. You've made a grave mistake, villain." And yet he wasn't given enough time as Iida soared after him, launching an overhead kick that thankfully Bakugo was able to block with his oversized gauntlet. While suspended in the air he used his other leg to kick Bakugo in the face, but that too was blocked by his other arm. As if bastard, grabbing onto Iida's foot, Bakugo swung the boy with enough force to toss him across the tight hallway, sending him crashing into a wall. Turning back around, the explosive teen met face to face with Dark Shadow attempting an attack, but he was easily countered by an explosion. That thing's weakness is the light Bakugo guessed immediately, already figuring out the creature's aversion to light as it backtracked all the way to the quirk's wielder. While the dark student was exposed, Bakugo used his quirk to rush him down, and by using a quirk-powered backhand strike, Tokiyami was struck on the chest by the large metal gauntlet, pushing him against the wall and even breaking a bone. "You bastard!" Dark Shadow yelled, but in his attempt to attack again, Bakugo simply extended his arm and used his quirk to scare off the creature of darkness, now fully incapacitating Tokiyami. He really is scared of the light. Talk about a bad matchup, he thought, but in his distraction Iida struck. Ha! Recipro capture! He yelled the improvised attack as he used his quirk in bursts to run tight circles around Bakugo. As he did so, he used his capture tape, the thick white tape that was given to them to allow them to capture members of the opposite team. Quickly Bakugo found himself held down by the tape, yet he still wasn't worried. "You dumbass," he boasted as he held his hands out to his sides and pointing in opposite directions. Using his quirk, he created powerful explosions that spun him in place, unwrapping him from the capture tape and making him spin like a top. Once he was fully freed, he extended his arm and clotheslined Iida with enough force to make him fall onto the floor and nearly knocking him out. After that short yet decisive battle, Bakugo stood victorious, Iida struggling to recover from the floor and Dark Shadow nursing Tokiyami's wounds. "Hey, too easy," he thought, reaching into his pocket and pulling out his own capture tape. "Did I underestimate him?" Iida asked himself as he was hoisted from the ground and quickly wrapped in tape. He tried to fight back, but Bakugo threatened him with his quirk. "Sit still or I'll kill you, you fiend." Much later, after a few more battles, the final battle was set into motion, the villain being the sole member of Team J, and the heroes being Team B. 10 minutes into the match, Shoto Todoroki waited patiently beside the warhead, not making a single sound. His costume was rather simple, a plain white shirt with all white pants and boots, along with a miniature backpack. Yet the interesting part was that his entire left side was covered in ice, including the red tuft of hair. To top it off, he wore a single red spectacle over his left eye while it was surrounded by ice, making him look like a half-robot as a result. For his temporary role as villain, he sure fit the part a bit too well. "It's been well over 10 minutes by now," he thought to himself, yet he continued to wait for longer, remaining focused on the task at hand. Eventually the two heroes finally barged in through the door, revealing the cocky heroes Minoru Mineta and Denki Kaminari. The smaller of the two had a head of hair consisting of purple balls, and wore a rather strange outfit, a purple bodysuit with rubber yellow gloves and rubber yellow boots, along with diaper-like trunks that protected his crotch. To end it off, he wore a black latex mask that covered his whole face minus his eyes and mouth. It was an odd choice of direction, but to each their own. The taller of the two had short yellow hair with a small bit of black in the shape of a lightning bolt along with yellow eyes. He wore a white shirt and black boots along with a stylish set of black pants and a black jacket that both had a white stripe design along with them. Otherwise he had a large white earpiece in the shape of an antenna over his right ear. As a whole, the outfit looked more like stylish casual wear than anything, much like Jiro, only with the oversized earpiece used for obvious reasons. "Ha, it's just a 2-on-1. We can take care of this easily," Mineta boasted, holding two purple hair balls. "Yeah, we can handle this." Kaminari followed along. Yet just as quickly as they entered, a large icy glacier rocketed towards them, growing from the ground and catching the two by surprise. Before they knew it, they were encased in ice, trapped by the single student in his ice. "Sorry, but the both of you were open." With such an unceremonious yet shocking display of power, the only thing that was left was to properly capture the two with his capture tape. The single action surprised everyone who watched from the camera, and deeply angering one. The school day ended at UA after the spectacular showdown between classmates, properly setting both the tone for the rest of the year and creating a hierarchy of sorts for the class. Most became friends, and two became unknowing rivals, but as they all left for the day, one person saw them leave from within the glass school. "Wow, they really are quite promising this year, huh?" Mirio asked his good friend Tamaki, both of which saw the freshmen leave from the building. Each one looked promising in their own right, and all seemed hopeful and starry-eyed. Much like they were when they were freshmen. Yeah, his friend replied simply, also admiring the positivity that radiated from them. Interrupting their musings were the overhead speakers blaring a new message. May Mirio Tagata please report to All Might's office, Mirio Tagata to All Might. Guess All Might needs you. I'll see you tomorrow then. Tamaki said his goodbye, leaving Mirio to his own devices. Right, All Might needs me. As the boy made his way to All Might's office he felt a small bit of nervousness within him. Not as much as before, but still a noticeable feeling in his stomach. He hadn't really talked to All Might since he appeared in training, so maybe this had to do with his further training. Play it cool, just like Sir taught you. Soon he found the office in question, and entered to find the large man standing just in front of the window and wearing his Silver Age costume. You called for me? Mirio asked, closing the door behind him. But he got no response. So instead he quietly stood beside the man as he stared out the window. To his surprise he saw what was essentially a view of the city, primarily the suburbs that surrounded the school. Various houses lined up beside each other, trees covered them and created much of the shade while the bright and shining city of Musudafu loomed a ways away. It was quite the sight, and if Mirio wasn't mistaken perhaps he just caught All Might stargazing. Do you see this city, young Tagata? Yeah I do. It's so gorgeous, he replied. But do you really see the city for what it is? Can you see that small family down there? All Might pointed at the glass, making Mirio shift his gaze. Within the large suburb was a family of two, a woman with dark blue hair and wearing a white dress, playing with her toddler son who also had dark blue hair. The two ran around their backyard gleefully, enveloped in their own form of fun that was unique from anyone else. Both mother and son had a close, unbreakable bond that Mirio could spot the second he noticed them. Yeah, down there and beyond lie not just beautiful cities, but wonderful lives that live in harmony. They prosper from the peace that we heroes maintain every day. He began his monologue, opening Mirio's eyes to the small, peaceful family. As heroes we protect those lives that can't protect themselves, but as the number one I have to protect the city as well as the people from any greater harm. It's my duty to keep everything the way it is. Because if not me, then who else can stand against the forces of evil? The heroes. Very good, he complimented. And this school is made specifically so that every graduating student may become a hero of their own, saving people in many different ways. But as my pupil, it's important that you first see what you're protecting, what you will eventually have to maintain when I'm gone. Can you do that for me? Of course. I'm gonna be the next symbol of peace, Mirio declared with a fire in his eyes. Good, then you're ready to become my pupil, he stated, turning to face the young man with a wide grin. And as part of your training, you'll help Class 1A grow too. What, the freshman class? Yep, they're another generation of heroes that will follow not long after you. And as the future symbol of peace it's excellent practice for you to inspire them to become their best selves. Just as I have to you. So helping him train is also a part of my training, he asked, until he realized something. Then again it's hard to train my strength and all when Sir Night-Eye is already doing such a great job. Maybe, he's going to train me to be more like him instead. I got it, so I'm gonna inspire them too. Of course, as a fellow student you'll become their model, a goal for them to become or surpass one day. And all the while I'll be there to guide you too. Wow, so to grow. I need to help others grow too. Exactly, are you ready for your challenge? All Might boasted, raising his arms sky high and waiting for a response. Yes All Might, I'll become just like you. Elsewhere, away from the shining light of hope was the hidden training warehouse. There Izuku continued his training as per usual. In the few weeks since he's received his quirk he's gone leaps and bounds in his training. All for One never properly explained the quirk, Survivor, to Izuku, nor had Kurogiri ever heard of it. And yet while his body was once capped out in terms of his power output and endurance, he's been able to shatter his limits and gain the strength of some adults, even as a teenager. His quirk, as mysterious as it was, also had strange properties to it as well. It was like every time he pushed himself he became stronger as a result, especially when he's met his limit. His wounds also heal much faster than before, like the broken bones he received during his test, healing in days rather than months. He's even gone a few days lacking sleep with no real backlash other than eating more, but because of it he has small bags under his eyes. I still don't know the full capabilities other than the name itself, he thought as he bench pressed a total of 100 pounds. But the more I use it, the more I'll find out about it. Finishing his exercise he set down the heavy weights and drank from his water, tired and exhausted. Quite impressive, Midoriya. That's more than twice the amount you were once used to. Kurogiri praised. Thanks, but it's just the quirk Sensei gave me that's doing all the heavy lifting. Nonsense, he rebutted, that quirk and its power is now yours. Don't forget it. Right, thanks. And by the way, how was your first day of school? Oh, about that. Contrary to what he thought in the morning, high school was almost the exact same as before, only without Kachan. Some of the same bullies he recognized were happy to see him again, while others only disregarded him. In the end he was treated the same as before, getting shoved around and pranked on occasion too. Same as always, I guess. Oh, you mean the pathetic children still poke and make fun of you? The Shadow Man guessed, hitting the nail on the head. If you can't take care of them yourself, then I can help you with that. No, please don't, I can handle it. It's not a matter of endurance, but if they make you uncomfortable then you should speak up. Fight against your oppressors. Yeah. But I'm not really uncomfortable anymore. Izuku began. Ever since the bullying started, I always wanted someone to help protect me from them, a hero like All Might who could make the bad people go away. But ever since Sensei came into my life, he's told me that I had the strength to hold on. And how does that connect with the current subject? Kurogiri asked curiously, eager to know more. Well, before I hated going to school because I didn't want to just stand there and take it. I hoped and prayed that someone could help me, but help never came. So now, I know that they don't bother me. For the same reason that I didn't die to Sensei's test, it's because I'm strong in my own right. Impressive answer, young Midoriya. I'm sure Master would be proud of your riveting speech. Kurogiri praised, before changing the subject. So, are you ready for your knife practice? Do I really have to use knives? I don't really like them. Midoriya chuckled nervously, but Kurogiri only sighed. He was still soft on the inside, no matter how much he trained and grew. Yes, because although your body is strong, that's no excuse to not learn how to defend yourself. You never know when your life may depend on your use of weapons. He stated as he teleported a small set of kitchen knives onto a table. Reluctantly the boy picked one up and took aim at the dartboard in front of him, trying to gauge where he wanted to hit and with how much force he wanted to throw. After some thought and focus he threw the knife, sending it spiraling after the dartboard and landing it near the very bottom of the board, stuck in place. Ha ha, it stuck to the board this time, Midoriya exclaimed, elated that he was able to break yet another barrier in his training. That it did, you now only need to land it in the center. The man replied as he used his quirk to remove the blade, starting anew. I'm getting stronger every day now. It's only a matter of time before Sensei sends me on some sort of mission. Izuku thought as he took aim and threw another knife, landing at the far right of the board. To be continued. I hope you enjoyed this story. Also remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.